What if I told you there are places on Earth so surreal they seem stolen from your dreams? Lands where mountains bleed fire, lakes glow with a celestial light, and forests hum with the echoes of ancient spirits. From the frozen cathedrals of Antarctica to the emerald jungles of the Amazon, today we will dive deep into the top 200 most beautiful wonders of our Earth. Get ready for a breathtaking odyssey through nature's most spellbinding creations. A vast wilderness where the sky and earth seem to blend into an endless panorama of untouched beauty. Patagonia's Perito Moreno Glacier is a masterpiece of ice and time. Towering nearly 240 feet above the glacial lake below, its jagged walls gleam in brilliant hues of white and blue, shifting as sunlight dances across its crevassed surface. The glacier stretches for nearly 19 miles, a frozen river of ancient ice that flows slowly yet persistently, defying the steady retreat of most of the world's other glaciers. Standing at the edge of the viewing platforms, visitors can feel the cold air radiating from the ice. The occasional deep groan echoes through the valley, a warning before enormous chunks of ice calve from the glacier's face and plunge into the turquoise waters of Lake Argentino. The sound is thunderous, a raw display of nature's power, sending ripples across the lake's surface. Boat tours bring travelers closer to this icy behemoth, allowing them to witness its grandeur from the water, where towering ice walls loom overhead. Those seeking an even more immersive experience can trek across the glacier itself, guided by experts who lead the way over crystalline formations, deep crevasses, and ice caves that glisten like frozen cathedrals. Each step crunches against the surface, an exploration into a realm that feels almost otherworldly. The contrast between the glacier's icy expanse and the lush forests surrounding the region adds to its surreal beauty. It is a place of quiet majesty, a frozen titan standing resilient against time. A shimmering mirage of pink and orange sands stretches endlessly under the desert sun, forming one of the most mesmerizing landscapes on Earth, the Wadi Rum in Jordan. Also known as the Valley of the Moon, this vast expanse of red dunes and towering sandstone cliffs has an ethereal, almost Martian quality that has captivated explorers for centuries. The sheer rock faces, weathered by millennia of wind and sand, rise like ancient fortresses against the horizon, etched with petroglyphs that tell stories of civilizations long past. Traversing the undulating dunes by camel, travelers can feel the vastness of the landscape, a place where silence reigns, broken only by the occasional gust of wind. Jeep tours offer a more adrenaline-fueled experience, speeding through the desert's hidden valleys and past colossal rock formations, some of which resemble natural sculptures shaped by time itself. As the sun dips lower in the sky, the desert transforms, bathed in hues of fiery red and deep purple, casting shadows that make the towering cliffs seem even more imposing. At night, Wadi Rum becomes a celestial wonder. With little light pollution, the sky erupts into a spectacle of stars, a cosmic dome that stretches infinitely above. Bedouin camps provide an opportunity to experience the region's ancient traditions, with the scent of spiced tea filling the air and the sound of traditional music echoing across the sands. Here, beneath a canopy of stars, one can truly appreciate the untamed beauty of Wadi Rum, a place where the earth and sky meet in perfect harmony. A realm of mist-shrouded peaks and jade-green rivers, the Huangshan Mountains in China seem to belong to the world of legends. Rising sharply from the valley floor, these ancient granite peaks have inspired poets, artists, and philosophers for centuries, their silhouette often depicted in traditional Chinese paintings. Winding stone paths lead travelers through dense pine forests and along precarious ridges, revealing vistas that shift with the changing weather. As dawn breaks, the mountains become a scene of unparalleled beauty. A sea of clouds drapes over the valleys, leaving only the highest peaks exposed, floating like islands above an ethereal white ocean. The famous welcoming pine, a centuries-old tree with gnarled branches reaching toward the sky, stands as a silent guardian of this dreamlike landscape. Each turn along the pathways reveals new wonders: narrow rock formations, deep ravines, and hidden hot springs that steam gently in the cool mountain air. One of the most breathtaking experiences in Huangshan is reaching the summit just as the sun rises. The golden light filters through the mist, illuminating the jagged peaks with a soft, otherworldly glow. It is a moment of pure serenity, a reminder of nature's quiet power. Cable cars glide above the cliffs, offering a bird's-eye view of the dramatic terrain, while those who choose to hike the trails are rewarded with an intimate journey through one of China's most awe-inspiring landscapes. A labyrinth of ice and fire, Kamchatka's Valley of Geysers is one of the rarest and most extraordinary geothermal wonders in the world. Hidden deep within the Russian Far East, this remote valley is a place where steaming vents, boiling hot springs, and powerful geysers erupt in an untamed display of Earth's raw energy. Accessible only by helicopter, the journey itself is an adventure, soaring over volcanoes, emerald lakes, and vast tundra landscapes before descending into the valley's geothermal paradise. Upon landing, the air is thick with the scent of sulfur, and the ground trembles beneath the force of superheated water surging from beneath the Earth's crust. More than 90 geysers dot the valley, each one with its own unique rhythm. Some explode in towering jets of steam, while others bubble and churn in simmering pools of sapphire and emerald hues. The largest, Velikan, giant, erupts with thunderous force, sending scalding water nearly 100 feet into the air. Wooden walkways guide visitors safely through this volatile terrain, offering breathtaking views of steaming cliffs, mineral-rich terraces, and waterfalls that flow with a mixture of hot and cold water. It is a land of extremes, where snow-capped volcanoes loom in the distance, their slopes occasionally streaked with rivers of molten lava. The contrast of fire and ice creates an environment unlike any other, a place where the earth itself breathes, constantly shifting and reshaping the land. A place where nature's artistic hand has sculpted a masterpiece. The fjordlands of Norway are a breathtaking fusion of towering cliffs, cascading waterfalls, and mirror-like waters. Here, ancient glaciers carved deep valleys that now brim with shimmering blue fjords, each one a testament to the slow but relentless power of ice over time. The sheer rock walls, some rising over 3,000 feet, plunge dramatically into the still waters, creating a surreal landscape that feels almost too perfect to be real. Sailing through these fjords is an experience of pure wonder. The world seems to slow as boats glide past emerald green slopes and remote villages that cling to the cliffsides. The Geirangerfjord, one of the most famous, is framed by steep mountains and graced with waterfalls that tumble down in delicate silver threads. Among them, the Seven Sisters Waterfall is the most enchanting, a collection of 7 streams that plummet gracefully into the fjord below. For those seeking adventure, hiking trails weave through the surrounding mountains, leading to panoramic viewpoints that leave visitors breathless. The famous Trolltunga, a jutting rock formation that hangs high above the fjord, offers one of the most dramatic views in Norway. The crisp mountain air, the sound of distant rushing water, and the sheer magnitude of the landscape combine to create an experience that lingers long after leaving. The fjords are a reminder of nature's quiet power, of how time, water, and ice can shape the world into something truly magnificent. Amid the lush jungles of Sri Lanka, an ancient rock fortress rises from the earth, a monolithic relic of a bygone era. Sigiriya, also known as Lion Rock, is one of the world's most astonishing archaeological sites, a towering 660-foot rock formation that once housed an entire kingdom. With its sheer cliffs and flat summit, it seems almost otherworldly, a fortress carved from stone that defies gravity itself. Climbing the ancient stone steps that wind their way up the rock, visitors pass through a gateway once flanked by an enormous lion's head. Only its massive stone paws remain today. Along the way, the walls reveal stunning frescoes, vibrant paintings of celestial maidens that have survived for over 1,000 years. The mirror wall, once so polished that the king could see his reflection, still bears ancient inscriptions left by visitors from centuries past. At the summit, the ruins of a grand palace await. Here, the king once walked through elegant gardens and gazed out over the endless green canopy of the jungle. From this height, the view is staggering, a vast stretch of wilderness, untouched and thriving. The remnants of water gardens, terraces, and pools hint at the ingenuity of the civilization that once flourished here. Sigiriya is more than just a fortress. It is a story etched into the rock itself, a monument to a lost kingdom that still whispers its secrets through the wind. An alien landscape of shimmering white, the Uyuni salt flats of Bolivia stretch endlessly in every direction, creating an optical illusion that defies logic. After a rainfall, the surface transforms into the world's largest natural mirror, reflecting the sky so perfectly that the horizon disappears, leaving the illusion of walking on air. The effect is mesmerizing. Clouds seem to drift beneath one's feet, and the vast emptiness blurs the line between reality and dream. During the dry season, the salt flats take on an entirely different appearance. The ground becomes a cracked hexagonal pattern, stretching as far as the eye can see. The blinding whiteness, contrasted with the piercing blue of the sky, creates an otherworldly landscape, one that feels more like another planet than Earth. In the middle of this surreal expanse, cacti-covered islands rise unexpectedly, remnants of an ancient lake that once covered the region. Isla Incahuasi, the most famous, offers breathtaking panoramic views over the endless salt flats. At night, the sky above Uyuni is a spectacle of stars. With no light pollution for miles, the Milky Way unfurls in all its brilliance, reflected perfectly in the shallow waters below. Time seems to stand still in this place, where land and sky merge into one, and the world feels infinite. It is a reminder that the most surreal wonders can be found in nature itself, crafted not by human hands but by time, wind, and water. Hidden deep within the heart of a dense forest in Croatia, Plitvice Lakes National Park is a realm of cascading waterfalls, crystal-clear lakes, and vibrant emerald greenery. It is a paradise of water and stone, where each step along its wooden walkways reveals another breathtaking scene. The park is home to 16 terraced lakes, all interconnected by a series of waterfalls that flow endlessly from one to the next. The water, rich in minerals, shimmers in hues of turquoise and sapphire, changing color depending on the sunlight and the minerals beneath the surface. Walking through the park feels like stepping into a dream. Gentle mist rises from the waterfalls, filling the air with a cool freshness as the sound of rushing water creates a constant, soothing symphony. The boardwalks lead through canopies of beech and fir trees, offering glimpses of fish swimming in the impossibly clear waters. Some of the waterfalls crash down in thunderous displays of power, while others trickle delicately over moss-covered rocks, forming intricate natural sculptures. One of the most stunning features of Plitvice is the Veliki Slap, or Great Waterfall, the highest in Croatia, standing at an impressive 255 feet. From the top, the panoramic view of the cascading lakes below is nothing short of breathtaking. Each turn in the path reveals a new wonder: hidden caves, glistening pools, and quiet corners of untouched beauty. Plitvice is more than just a national park. It is a living, breathing masterpiece of nature, a place where water and time have sculpted a landscape of unparalleled magic. A vast, unspoiled wilderness where wildlife roams free and rivers carve through ancient forests. Canada's Banff National Park is a sanctuary of natural beauty, encompassing towering mountains, turquoise glacial lakes, and sweeping valleys. This breathtaking expanse in the heart of the Canadian Rockies feels like a dream brought to life. Lake Louise, often called the Jewel of the Rockies, is perhaps the most famous sight in the park. Its waters shimmer in brilliant shades of emerald and blue, a result of finely ground rock particles carried down by melting glaciers. The lake is framed by soaring peaks, their rugged faces mirrored perfectly in the glassy surface. In summer, kayakers drift across the water, taking in the grandeur of the surrounding mountains, while in winter, the frozen lake transforms into a skating paradise, reflecting the crisp alpine sky. Not far from Lake Louise, Moraine Lake offers an equally mesmerizing sight. Nestled in the Valley of the 10 Peaks, its surreal blue waters seem almost otherworldly. A short hike leads to the famous Rock Pile, a vantage point that offers one of the most iconic views in the world. Moraine Lake's vibrant waters set against jagged, snow-capped summits. Beyond the lakes, Banff's vast network of hiking trails leads adventurers through untouched landscapes. Meadows bursting with wildflowers, deep canyons where waterfalls crash into the rocks below, and high-altitude trails that reveal sweeping vistas of the surrounding peaks. Wildlife thrives in this rugged paradise. Elk, moose, and even grizzly bears roam freely, adding to the sense that this is a land ruled by nature. As the sun sets behind the mountains, the sky blazes in hues of pink and gold, casting a final glow over a place that feels truly wild and free. Deep in the karst mountains of Laos lies a world unseen, a subterranean kingdom of colossal caverns and winding underground rivers. Tam Kong Lo Cave is one of Southeast Asia's greatest hidden wonders, a place where time seems to vanish, swallowed by the shadows of its immense interior. The entrance, framed by jagged cliffs and lush jungle, offers no hint of the vastness within. Only when stepping into a small wooden boat and gliding over the ink-black waters of the Nam Hin Bun River does the true scale of this natural wonder reveal itself. For nearly 4 miles, the river snakes through the pitch-black cave, passing beneath cathedral-like ceilings that stretch hundreds of feet overhead. The sound of dripping water echoes through the vast chamber, broken only by the soft splash of oars. Stalactites and stalagmites, formed over millions of years, rise like frozen waterfalls, their intricate formations illuminated by the glow of headlamps. Midway through the journey, a hidden beach emerges in the darkness, a surreal oasis where golden sands meet the silent black waters. Here, a short walk leads to chambers filled with rock formations that glisten as if carved from crystal. The cave's exit, a glowing arch of light in the distance, feels like a gateway back to the world above. Emerging into the daylight after such an immersive journey through the depths is like stepping from a forgotten realm into a place that suddenly feels brighter, sharper, and more alive. A realm of fire and stone. The ancient city of Petra in Jordan is a place where the past whispers through the walls of towering sandstone cliffs. Hidden within a labyrinth of rocky canyons, this UNESCO World Heritage Site is one of the most breathtaking archaeological wonders on Earth. Carved directly into the rose-red cliffs more than 2,000 years ago by the Nabateans, Petra's grandeur is revealed slowly, step by step, as visitors traverse the winding Sik, a narrow gorge flanked by towering walls that seem to touch the sky. As the passage opens, the site of Al-Khazna, or the treasury, takes the breath away. Its intricate facade, carved with extraordinary detail, glows in hues of pink and gold as sunlight spills into the canyon. Towering columns, weathered statues, and delicate carvings hint at the lost civilization that once thrived here. But the treasury is only the beginning. Beyond lies an entire city sculpted from rock, colossal temples, royal tombs, and grand amphitheaters where thousands once gathered. The monastery, a hidden gem deep within Petra, rises like a fortress at the end of a challenging climb, its massive doorway dwarfing all who stand before it. From the heights of Petra's surrounding cliffs, panoramic views stretch across the rugged desert, revealing a landscape as timeless as the city itself. At night, Petra transforms into an even more magical sight. Thousands of candles flicker along the path through the Sik, leading to the treasury, which glows under the soft light of the flames. The air fills with the haunting melodies of traditional Bedouin music, and for a moment, it feels as if the ancient city has awakened once more, alive with the echoes of history. Rising like a mirage from the sands of the Arabian Peninsula, the empty quarter, Rub al-Khali, is the largest continuous sand desert in the world. It is a place where the horizon stretches endlessly, where golden dunes tower like waves frozen in time, and where silence reigns supreme. The sheer scale of this desert is staggering. It spans across 4 countries, Saudi Arabia, Oman, the UAE, and Yemen, covering an expanse so vast that it seems almost infinite. Standing atop one of its colossal dunes at sunrise, the landscape transforms into an ocean of shifting colors. Shades of gold, orange, and crimson ripple across the sand as the first light of day awakens the desert. The wind moves softly, sculpting new patterns into the ever-changing dunes, ensuring that no 2 days ever look the same. Despite its harsh and unforgiving nature, the empty quarter holds secrets of life and history. Ancient trade routes once crisscrossed this expanse, caravans carrying precious incense and spices through the golden wilderness. Hidden beneath the sands lie lost cities, civilizations long vanished, but whose legends still whisper through the desert winds. For those who venture here, the experience is one of absolute solitude and awe. The nights bring a sky so clear and vast that the Milky Way stretches overhead in breathtaking clarity. Sitting by a flickering fire under the endless desert stars, one cannot help but feel a deep connection to something ancient and eternal. The empty quarter is not just a landscape, it is a place of raw beauty, where the earth tells stories written in sand. Where lush rainforest meets thundering cascades, Iguazu Falls is one of the most spectacular natural wonders on the planet. Straddling the border between Argentina and Brazil, this massive system of 275 waterfalls stretches nearly 2 miles, creating an overwhelming spectacle of mist, water, and sound. The sheer power of the falls is breathtaking, with millions of gallons plunging into the river below every second. The heart of Iguazu's fury is the Devil's Throat, a colossal U-shaped cascade where water crashes down a staggering 270 feet, sending mist soaring into the sky. Standing on the viewing platform at the edge of this roaring abyss, visitors are engulfed by the thunderous sound and the sensation of being surrounded by raw, untamed power. Rainbows form in the perpetual mist, adding an almost magical glow to the scene. Beyond the falls, the surrounding rainforest teems with life. Howler monkeys call from the treetops. Vibrant toucans flit between branches, and elusive jaguars prowl the dense undergrowth. The national parks on both the Argentine and Brazilian sides offer countless trails and walkways, allowing visitors to experience the falls from different angles, some offering panoramic views, others leading to intimate encounters where the water seems close enough to touch. A boat ride beneath the falls provides the ultimate thrill, where the churning water drenches adventurers as they are pulled into the heart of the cascade. Whether experienced from above, below, or within, Iguazu Falls is an overwhelming testament to the power and beauty of nature, one that leaves visitors spellbound long after they leave its misty embrace. In the far reaches of New Zealand's South Island, where rugged cliffs meet the restless sea, lies the mystical Fiordland, a land sculpted by glaciers and cloaked in an air of untouched wilderness. Towering peaks rise sharply from dark fjords, their sheer faces draped in cascading waterfalls that tumble from great heights. The most famous of these fjords, Milford Sound, is a place of staggering beauty, often shrouded in mist that drifts between its peaks like a ghostly veil. Sailing through the fjord, the world seems to stand still. The water is so deep and inky that it mirrors the mountains perfectly, creating a dreamlike reflection of the world above. Dolphins dance alongside boats. Seals lounge lazily on rocky outcrops. And if one is lucky, a rare glimpse of a Fiordland-crested penguin can be caught amid the ferns that cling to the cliffsides. One of the most humbling sights is Stirling Falls, a dramatic cascade that plunges over 500 feet into the fjord below. The wind carries its spray far into the air, soaking those who dare venture close enough. But Fiordland's magic extends beyond its waterways. Hidden within its dense forests are trails that lead to breathtaking viewpoints, where the silence of the land is broken only by the distant call of birds. At night, the sky above Fiordland comes alive. With virtually no light pollution, the Milky Way blazes in full clarity, its brilliance reflected in the calm waters below. It is a place of pure, unspoiled wonder, where nature reigns supreme, and the wild beauty of the world remains untamed. Rising above the vast Namib Desert, the towering red dunes of Sossusvlei are an awe-inspiring spectacle that defies imagination. These dunes, some of the highest in the world, stand like colossal waves frozen in time, their rippling forms sculpted by the wind over thousands of years. The most famous among them, Dune 45, rises to an astonishing 560 feet, its crest offering an unparalleled view over the endless desert expanse. Climbing the dunes at sunrise is an experience like no other. The soft, golden light transforms the landscape, casting long shadows and setting the sand ablaze in deep shades of red and orange. Each step sinks into the soft grains, making the ascent slow and meditative. But the reward is worth every effort. From the summit, the view stretches endlessly, a sea of dunes rolling toward the horizon under an impossibly blue sky. At the heart of Sossusvlei lies a place of haunting beauty, Deadvlei, a surreal white clay pan where ancient dead camel thorn trees stand like skeletal sentinels against the backdrop of fiery dunes. Their twisted, blackened forms have stood untouched for centuries, preserved by the arid air, creating one of the most striking landscapes on Earth. Despite its harshness, the desert teems with life. Oryx, with their elegant curved horns, roam the dunes, their pale coats blending seamlessly with the sands. Small desert creatures, adapted to the extreme conditions, leave delicate trails in the sand, evidence of life in a place that seems so barren. As night falls, the desert sky erupts into a celestial masterpiece. With no artificial light for miles, the stars blaze in unimaginable brilliance, their glow mirrored by the endless sands below. In this place of quiet grandeur, time seems to pause, and the vastness of the world becomes almost tangible. Now leap across the globe to the edge of the Andes in northern Argentina, where the town of Purmamarca nestles in the shadow of the Hill of Seven Colors. This is a landscape painted by geology over millennia, where rock strata rise like frozen waves, each layer a different hue: ochre, violet, rust, rose, green, gold, and pearl, like God spilled his palette and let it dry in the sun. The morning sun ignites the mountain in silent fire. You wake to roosters crowing and market stalls being set up along cobblestone streets. Hand-woven textiles sway gently in the breeze, dyed in the same earth tones as the hills above. Llamas watch from shaded doorways, and old women with sun-creased faces greet you with a nod, as if to say, "This beauty is old. Older than words, older than names." Wander the Paseo de los Colorados, a walking trail that wraps behind the painted hill, and you're swallowed by silence. The earth crunches underfoot, the dry wind combs your hair, and above you, the rock blazes like stained glass. Every step forward is a movement through geological time, a communion with the bones of the world. In Purmamarca, time is a slow flame. People sip mate on porches, take siestas in the shadow of adobe walls, gather at twilight in the square as guitars and laughter float into the dusk. Night falls hard and fast here, but when it comes, the stars arrive in force, dense and brilliant and seemingly within reach. You find yourself standing in the dark, listening to wind tumble down the mountain like a secret. The Hill of Seven Colors disappears into shadow, but you still feel it, towering behind you, ancient and alive. From the arid whisper of the Andes, the path turns toward water, and silence turns to thunder. High above the clouds, where Peru's Andes stretch toward the sky in jagged majesty, the forgotten citadel of Choquequirao sleeps in solitude. Often called the sister of Machu Picchu, it is its quieter, more elusive twin, just as powerful, but shielded by days of hiking, sheer cliffs, and an unforgiving sun. Few make the journey, fewer still stand in its shadow, but those who do are forever changed. The stone terraces spill down the mountainside like amphitheaters built for gods. Llamas graze between them, oblivious to the awe they stir. Mist clings to the ramparts in the morning, lifting slowly to reveal a complex more vast than Machu Picchu, but untouched by tourism. No crowds, no noise. Just the sound of wind brushing against stone that has stood for centuries. Built by the Inca, reclaimed by the jungle, and now slowly being revealed again, Choquequirao feels like a secret being whispered back into the world. You walk its pathways with reverence, touching stones placed with impossible precision, and feel the weight of history pressed gently against your chest. When night falls and stars flood the sky, there's only one word that fits: sacred. Far out in the desert, beyond the reach of the ordinary world, something otherworldly rises from the sand. Red sandstone arches twist into improbable shapes. Delicate fins of rock rise like the pages of an open book caught mid-turn by the wind. Welcome to Little Finland, an alien realm tucked into a remote corner of Clark County. Known to a few by its whispered nickname, Hobgoblin's Playground, this geological dreamscape is one of Nevada's most surreal wonders. Here, nature has taken up sculpture. The formations seem to defy physics. Thin, lacy ridges of rock perched on delicate pedestals, soaring spirals frozen mid-motion. Their colors shift with every hour of sunlight, blazing deep crimson in the morning, softening to coral by noon, then glowing with golden fire as evening descends. The terrain feels alive, like a creature breathing under the surface of the sand. The ground itself undulates with petrified dunes, polished smooth in some places, rough as dragon hide in others. Wind is the eternal artist here, carving curves and grooves with patient precision. In the silence of this place, you can almost hear it working, whispering through the fins and crevices, shaping the next masterpiece. To reach Little Finland requires determination, a high-clearance vehicle, good maps, and a reverence for isolation. But those who make the journey are rewarded with an experience that feels mythic. No signposts, no barriers, just raw, impossible beauty stretching across the desert like the remnants of some forgotten dream. At night, the stars arrive in violent brightness. The Milky Way arches overhead, unchallenged by city lights, and the formations glow faintly in moonlight, as if remembering the day just passed. Wandering through Little Finland is like stepping into a world where time and reality bend, where nature dreams in stone. There's no rush here, only awe, only stillness, only the deep hum of the earth remembering its ancient art. In the shadowy folds of the Swiss Jura Mountains, hidden where the forest thickens and the trail becomes more suggestion than path, a marvel waits, unspoiled and unsung. Creux du Vin, an immense natural amphitheater carved into limestone, rises with silent grandeur from a bed of mist. Its cliffs, almost vertical and 160 meters high, form a perfect crescent over a kilometer wide. From afar, it appears like the very edge of the world, a place where the earth forgot to close its pages, leaving behind this majestic scar as proof of some primal battle between water, wind, and stone. Up here above the treetops, the air carries the scent of lichen and distant snow. Eagles circle on unseen currents, their silhouettes stark against a sky so wide it seems to touch the ends of time. The drop below is dizzying, a sheer plunge into a basin filled with whispers, the echo of your own breath bouncing back at you with 1,000 years of history folded in. At sunrise, the stone blazes gold, casting long shadows across the pine-spotted slopes. Fog often curls within the amphitheater like a sleeping giant's breath, and for moments at a time, the world becomes a monochrome painting of rock, cloud, and light. There are no fences, no warning signs, only the silent understanding that nature rules here. Ibex scale the cliffs like apparitions, their hooves barely making a sound. You sit at the edge, shoes hanging over the void, and something ancient stirs in your chest. A sense of scale, of awe, of humility. Creux du Vin isn't a destination, it's a revelation, carved from the bones of the earth and left exposed, waiting for those brave or curious enough to find it. Beneath the dense jungles of central Laos, along the sleepy banks of the Nam Hinbun River, lies a cave so vast, it has its own weather system. Kong Lor Cave, or Tam Kong Lo, is one of Southeast Asia's most astonishing natural wonders, a cathedral of stone buried in the heart of the mountains. For years, it remained a secret, spoken of in hushed tones by locals who believed spirits lived within its depths. To enter Kong Lor is to drift into the bones of the earth, A narrow wooden boat carries you into the black mouth of the cave, lanterns casting trembling shadows on the soaring walls. The darkness here is complete, so deep it seems to swallow sound. But then the cave opens, and opens, and opens. For over 7 kilometers, the river carves its way through an underground kingdom. The ceilings stretch 100 feet above. Stalactites hang like frozen daggers, and hidden alcoves reveal chambers glittering with calcite formations that glow like moonstone in the lamplight. Occasionally, the guides stop and switch off the engines. Silence reigns. You are floating in a cavern that predates civilization, surrounded by walls shaped by patience and water. And when you emerge on the other side, blinking into sunlight, it feels like rebirth. Few places on Earth so perfectly embody the sensation of discovering another world. Konglor is not just a cave. It is an initiation into mystery, a descent into the deep quiet of geologic time, and a journey you carry within forever. Now cross the continent and find yourself in the remote, dreamlike expanse of the Kamchatka Peninsula in Russia's Far East. Here, the earth breathes fire. In the Valley of Geysers, one of the largest geyser fields in the world, steam rises from the ground in swirling pillars, curling around moss-draped cliffs and emerald ravines. This is a place where nature is not gentle. It is fierce, alive, volcanic. Mud pots bubble like cauldrons. Jets of scalding water erupt skyward without warning. The earth groans and exhales, and it feels less like a landscape and more like a living, breathing being. Access to Kamchatka is not easy. Most arrive by helicopter, flying over ice-cloaked peaks and lava-stained valleys to land on the edge of another planet. Brown bears roam the forests in great numbers, fishing in rivers heavy with salmon. Volcanic cones dominate the skyline. More than 160 volcanoes, 29 of them still active. And in their shadows, wildflowers bloom defiantly, drenching the tundra in color when summer breaks the long winter's hold. A hike across Kamchatka is a lesson in surrender. Trails are unpredictable. Conditions change quickly, but in return, you get raw, unfiltered wonder. Bathing in a natural hot spring while snowflakes melt on your eyelashes. Watching a geyser erupt against a wall of golden autumn birch. Hearing nothing for hours but the crunch of your own footsteps and the distant call of an eagle. This is not a destination for convenience. It is for awe. In the heart of Washington State's Cascade Mountains, concealed behind jagged ridgelines and demanding trails, lies a realm carved from ice, wind, and myth, the enchantments. This alpine sanctuary is not stumbled upon. It must be earned. The hike that leads to it is grueling, a gauntlet of switchbacks and stone, testing the resolve of every adventurer. But for those who push through, the reward is nothing short of transcendent. At the crest of Asgard Pass, breathless and dizzy with altitude, the world opens in spectacular silence. Jagged granite peaks tear at the sky like frozen fire, and a necklace of turquoise lakes glitters across the valley below. They are so pristine they seem unreal, each one fringed with snowfields even in summer, their waters holding the blue of forgotten dreams. Larches, golden and defiant, stand like sentinels across meadows brushed with wildflowers. The light here is different, sharper, cleaner, as though the sky has peeled back a layer to show you something older than time. At night, the wind slips over the ridges like a sigh, and stars multiply into thousands, mirrored perfectly in the still lakes. Mountain goats descend the slopes without a sound, and in those quiet hours, you realize this place is not just beautiful, it's sacred. The enchantments do not offer comfort. They offer revelation. And in their silence, you'll hear something forgotten in the modern world: awe. In the heart of southern Nevada's Mojave Desert, enveloped by volcanic ridgelines and shimmering heat mirages, lies the Ash Meadows National Wildlife Refuge, a name too humble for the surreal wonder that unfolds within. Here, in one of the driest regions of North America, water pours forth from ancient underground aquifers, feeding an oasis so vibrant, it feels like a mirage dreamt into existence. Ash Meadows is a sanctuary carved by contradiction. Crystal-clear springs emerge from the desert floor with impossible clarity. Blue beyond belief, transparent as glass. They glimmer with shades of turquoise and emerald, cradled in lush grasses and white salt flats. These waters have flowed uninterrupted for millennia, some traveling thousands of years through underground channels before surfacing here. Each spring is a world unto itself. Crystal Pool glows like liquid sapphire under the sun. Point of Rocks offers a labyrinth of boardwalks that trace across shallow, rippling pools that shimmer with life. But the water is not the only miracle. Ash Meadows is one of the most biologically unique places in the United States. It is home to more endemic species than any other wildlife refuge in the country. Tiny fish, rare insects, desert plants that grow nowhere else on Earth. The most famous of these, the Ash Meadows amargosa pupfish, glitters beneath the surface in flashes of silver blue. These fish have survived since the last ice age, adapting to scalding temperatures and fluctuating flows with an almost mythical resilience. Silence dominates here, soft and full. Wind moves through low saltbush and mesquite, rustling like whispered secrets. The sun feels ancient on your skin. Time folds here. You don't walk the boardwalks as much as you float through a dream of what the world might have been before we paved it. The smell of wet earth and sun-baked minerals rises with every step. Lizards dart across your path, impossibly quick, while hawks soar overhead in lazy spirals. Even the air feels different. Cool pockets drift from the water's edge, blending with the desert's heat in a quiet dance. You'll find yourself pausing often, not just to look, but to breathe, to feel. There is a sacredness here that no photograph can capture. It is something that seeps into your bones, into your sense of place. And then the sky begins to change. The sun descends, and the basin is bathed in soft gold. Shadows stretch across the marshlands. The springs, now mirror still, reflect the pinks and purples of the sky above. It is a closing lullaby, sung without sound. And you understand, in that moment, that Ash Meadows isn't a destination. It's a revelation. Amid the sweeping volcanic highlands of Ethiopia, concealed within the depths of the Simien Mountains, lies a secret cathedral carved not of stone, but of fire and sky, Abuna Yamata Gu. This monolithic church, etched into a sheer sandstone cliff, stands over 2,500 meters above sea level, accessible only to those willing to scale the vertical rock face with nothing but footholds and faith. The ascent is not for the faint-hearted. You climb barefoot, fingers gripping time-smoothed ridges, the abyss yawning below with every upward step. Yet, with every breathless meter gained, the world below grows smaller, and something deeper begins to rise within, a kind of primal reverence. At the summit, the entrance to the church yawns like a secret long buried, and when you pass through, a new world unfolds. Inside, the walls bloom with ancient frescoes, vivid portraits of saints and angels painted over 1,000 years ago. their colors unfaded by time, their eyes wise with eternity. The air is still and cool, filtered through centuries of devotion. Sunlight spills through a narrow slit in the stone, casting beams upon the altar. Outside, the world spreads in silence, peaks and plateaus dissolving into haze. This place was not built to attract pilgrims. It was born from a need to touch the divine in solitude. Abuna Yamata-gu is not just a church. It is a prayer cast into the sky, a monument to the idea that the path to something sacred is never easy, but always worth the climb. Thousands of miles away, where Africa stretches its arm into the Indian Ocean, the Quirimbas archipelago shimmers off the northern coast of Mozambique like a trail of spilled pearls. Of its 32 coral islands, many remain untouched, unpaved, unlit, unspoiled. But Ibo Island is different. Ibo is forgotten history, wrapped in sea breeze and draped in bougainvillea. The tide pulls far out here, exposing glassy tidal flats that stretch to the horizon. You can walk barefoot across the ocean floor at low tide, weaving between corals and scattered shells, trailing hermit crabs and egrets. When the sea returns, it comes swiftly, warm, gentle, and endless. The island breathes with the slow rhythm of the ocean. Crumbling Portuguese forts, overtaken by vines and moss, stand along the coast like haunted watchmen. Ornate iron balconies cling to the facades of faded colonial mansions. Narrow alleyways weave between stone walls, their shadows deep and cool. And beneath it all, a hum of voices speaking Swahili and Makua, of wind moving through ancient casuarinas, of the ocean rising and falling like the lungs of the world. On Ibo, fishermen cast their nets in dugout canoes carved from single tree trunks. Children splash in mangroves at dusk, and the scent, salt, mango wood, and distant fire, clings to every breeze. As night falls, the island quiets completely. Stars explode across the sky, reflected in the still lagoon. It feels like the universe is whispering, and Ibo Island is the only place listening. In a narrow gorge cut deep into the limestone mountains of southern Albania lies a secret path carved by a whispering river. It's called the Lengarica Canyon, and if ever there was a hidden paradise tucked beneath the folds of Europe, this is it. Towering cliffs flank the gorge, their faces streaked with mineral hues, ochre, copper, ivory, like brushstrokes on cathedral walls. The river, shallow and crystalline, winds its way through pebbled beds and stone arches, cutting a ribbon of silver through a landscape that feels untouched by time. As you wander along its winding route, the canyon's secrets reveal themselves slowly. Natural thermal springs bubbling at your feet, long-forgotten stone bridges arching over the flow, and secluded pools shaded by olive and fig trees. In spring, the canyon is blanketed with wildflowers. In summer, it hums with dragonflies. And in winter, a frosty hush settles over its curves like a lullaby whispered by the earth itself. Above the canyon rests the village of Benja, its crumbling stone houses and terracotta roofs visible like forgotten memories perched on the hillsides. Time here runs slower, measured not in minutes, but in the rhythm of goats' bells and the rising steam of a wood fire meal. The Lengarica Canyon isn't just a natural marvel. It's a refuge, a sanctuary, a hidden realm where the world softens and the soul expands. Beyond the reaches of concrete and noise, tucked between the Ruby Mountains and the high desert, lies a sanctuary so vast and vital, it feels like a breath held in the palm of the earth. Ruby Lake National Wildlife Refuge. It stretches across more than 37,000 acres of wetland and meadow, where sky and water meet in a harmony so quiet, it becomes holy. At dawn, the marshlands come alive with motion and song. The mirror-still surface of the lake catches fire with the rising sun, igniting a symphony of color, burnished golds, soft pinks, and shimmering silvers. Egrets wade gracefully through the shallows. Trumpeter swans glide silently, their white feathers catching the light like soft flames. Sandhill cranes descend in deliberate arcs, their cries echoing across the stillness. This is not just a refuge for birds, it is a refuge for the spirit. Wooden boardwalks stretch gently over the water, allowing you to walk among the reeds and willows without disturbing the fragile dance of life unfolding all around. Mule deer graze along the edges of open fields. Pronghorn move like whispers across the distance. Fish swirl in the crystal-clear waters, their presence marked by a fleeting glimmer or a sudden ripple. To stand in the heart of the refuge is to feel small, but in the best way. The Ruby Mountains rise behind you, catching cloud shadows across their snow-flecked flanks. The desert sprawls beyond, vast and unknowable. And here in the hush between sky and water, you are reminded of balance, of quiet beauty, of the fragile, enduring miracle of wilderness. Ruby Lake does not rush. It does not shout. It waits, eternal and patient, offering itself only to those who slow down enough to see it. Those who do are never quite the same. There's a place where the desert exhales, where life pulses through reeds and cottonwoods and stone seems to hum underfoot. In the deep north of Italy, where the Dolomites rise like jagged teeth from emerald meadows, there is a place where legends take form and light dances as though under a spell. The Alpe di Siusi, Europe's largest alpine plateau, is a world suspended between earth and dream. Rolling pastures stretch endlessly, dotted with wildflowers in the warmer months and blanketed in quiet white through winter's hush. Wooden huts sit like sleeping sentinels beneath mountains that change color with the passing hour. Rosy at dawn, gold by noon, and smoldering crimson as dusk falls. Here, time forgets itself. There are no cities, no wires, no urgency. Just the slow ballet of clouds sweeping shadows across the grass, and the distant song of cowbells carried on the wind like memories from a gentler time. The paths across the plateau unfold like lines in a poem, leading not just to views, but to moments. Moments when you feel, unmistakably, that the land itself is alive and watching. The peaks of the Ciliar Massif loom above, their forms jagged and imposing, yet softened by the embrace of sky. At sunrise, a hush settles so complete that even the breeze seems reverent. Mist hovers low, curling around the barns and fences like a protective spirit. In these hours, the world turns inward. A marmot peers from its burrow. A deer moves with regal grace through the fog, and every footstep feels like a conversation with the past. Villagers tend the fields with hands hardened by tradition, their lives attuned to rhythms modern life has forgotten. This is not merely a landscape, it is a symphony composed by the planet itself, playing in slow motion. The Alpe di Siusi does not ask you to explore. It asks you to feel, to surrender, and to become a fleeting part of something eternal. Where the dry lands of Chile bleed into the Atacama's northern edge, the wind-carved cliffs of Valle de la Luna stand like guardians of an alien planet. And nestled just beyond, barely known even to seasoned travelers, is a place sculpted in whispers and salt, the Piedras Rojas. Here, the high-altitude desert becomes an artist's canvas, painted with colors that defy logic. Rust-red rock formations wrapped around lagoons of neon turquoise. framed by the silent, snow-dusted Andes. It is a place where extremes collide. The sun burns and the air chills. Flamingos wade through shallow mineral lakes, their pink reflections mirrored in surreal clarity. The landscape looks alive, like it's breathing through the dry wind that scrapes across the plains. And yet, there's no movement, just the heavy hush of geological time, stretching endlessly into the horizon. You arrive not by chance, but by choice, bouncing across salt flats and gravel trails until the world falls away behind you. And when you step out into the luminous quiet, something shifts. The colors of the earth seem more vivid, the sky more infinite. You don't just look, you feel. The ancient energy of the land hums in your bones. Here, in this uncelebrated corner of the Atacama, the earth wears its oldest skin and dares you to listen. In the green heart of Laos, a great river carves its way beneath limestone cliffs into the dark of a world untouched by time. This is Tam Kong Lo, a river cave so vast, so profound in its scope, it feels like entering the lungs of the earth itself. Board a long-tail boat at the cave's mouth, where the water turns from green to ink as it slips into shadow. The ceiling swallows the light, and your eyes adjust slowly as your guide steers by headlamp, a soft beam tracing the contours of ancient rock. The cave stretches for over 7 kilometers, a cathedral of stone and silence. Stalactites hang like the jaws of prehistoric creatures. The water glimmers beneath you, quiet and impossibly still. At times, the ceiling soars hundreds of feet above. At others, it presses low, and you duck instinctively, held in the breath of rock that's seen no sun for centuries. Midway through, you stop. The light goes out, and in that complete blackness, you hear everything. The drip of water from the ceiling, the gentle creak of the wooden boat, your own breath slowing. There's no sound like it in the world. It is not silence. It is presence. Eventually, you emerge on the other side into a valley ringed by karst cliffs, wild and green, where the river resumes its lazy path beneath open sky. It feels like a rebirth, like you have passed through something sacred, and now everything, the sun, the breeze, the sound of birds, is new again. Local villagers live in thatched stilt houses here, growing rice in plots carved from jungle. They speak softly, laugh easily, and move with a grace that can only come from being in harmony with the world around them. They know the cave not as a tourist site, but as a living spirit, a sacred corridor between darkness and light. Tam Kong Lo is not a place for casual travel. It is a place for transformation, for emerging quieter, smaller perhaps, but more awake. Deep in the wilderness of the Philippines' northern Cordilleras lies a marvel few outside the country ever witness. Buscalan, a village carved into the mountain's spine, shrouded in clouds and only reachable by foot. It is home to a legacy written not in ink, but skin. The last of the traditional Kalinga tattoo artists, Wangod, lives here. An elderly woman whose hands still tap out sacred patterns using a thorn, a bamboo stick, and centuries of ancestral memory. To reach Buscalan, one must hike narrow paths clinging to cliff sides, cross bamboo bridges over roaring gorges, and pass rice terraces that cascade like green stairways into the sky. But the journey is part of the spell. Along the way, the landscape breathes with life. Carabaos cooling in the rivers, mountain breezes laced with pine and citrus, the rhythmic chopping of wood echoing through the canyons. In Buscalan, tradition is not preserved, it thrives. Children run barefoot through fog-laced alleys, Elders chew betel nut and recount legends of headhunters and mountain spirits. And tattooing is not a novelty. It is a rite of passage, a map of a soul worn proudly. Wangod herself, over 100 years old, is a living monument to a culture that refuses to vanish. Watching her work is like witnessing time flow backward. This is not just a remote village. It is a temple of heritage, a highland story etched into every stone, every smile, and every scar, carving a graceful arc through a canyon that seems too grand to belong to this world. Granite walls rise on either side like the open pages of a colossal book, each etched with the stories of ice and time. This is Lamoille Canyon, a glacial corridor nestled within the Ruby Mountains. It appears suddenly, without warning, an amphitheater of stone and sky unfurling before you. Every turn reveals something unexpected: a ribbon waterfall tumbling over polished rock, a meadow carpeted in wildflowers, a bald eagle circling lazily overhead. At Island Lake, silence hangs heavy in the air, broken only by the occasional splash of a fish breaking the surface. The lake mirrors the jagged peaks that stand like guardians around it, their reflections trembling slightly in the crystalline water. In the early morning, mist rises from the surface, softening the edges of the world until everything seems to hover between dream and waking. Hiking trails spider out in every direction, each one leading to a new fragment of wonder. The Thomas Canyon Trail curls upward into dense stands of aspen and fir, offering glimpses of hidden grottos and panoramic views that stretch for miles across the basin below. In autumn, the entire canyon ignites with color. Aspen leaves catch fire in hues of gold and amber, and the air takes on the crisp scent of change. The wind rustles the canopy in a whispering hush, as if the forest itself is pausing to admire its own transformation. At dusk, the granite cliffs blush in the last light of day, turning soft pink, then lavender, then deep, solemn blue. The stars arrive one by one, scattered like diamonds across the sky. Lamoille becomes a cathedral, and the night air rings with reverence. There are no crowds here, no tour buses, just you, the trail, and a world so exquisite it almost aches to witness it. Where the deep greens of the Carpathians roll into hidden valleys and fog-draped meadows, a jewel rests untouched by time. Lake St. Anna in Romania. Formed in the ancient crater of a long-extinct volcano, it is the only lake of its kind in the country. A perfect circle of water cradled by forest, breathing quietly beneath an ever-changing sky. The journey to reach it feels like descending into the memory of the earth itself. Pines grow thick and tall, crowding the path as if conspiring to keep the lake a secret. When you emerge, it lies before you like a mirror that has seen 1,000 years and still refuses to age. There is no pollution here. No motorboats, no city sound, not even the usual clamor of tourists. Instead, dragonflies skitter across the surface like dancers in a dream, and the stillness is broken only by the occasional plop of a fish beneath the glass. The waters are so clear they seem unreal, blue in some light, green in others, always rippling with mystery. It is said that the air itself is purer here, charged by minerals and silence, capable of healing simply by being breathed in. The trees lean over the lake protectively, their reflections melting into the water like brushstrokes in an old painting. Mist often curls along the surface in the early hours, turning the lake into a cauldron of silver and shadow. To stand at the edge of St. Anna is to be caught between worlds, between fire and water, between what was and what remains. The legends speak of sacrifice, of transformation, of souls that wander still. But when you're there, you understand without needing the stories. You feel the old magic thrumming through the soil, through the wind, through your very bones. Along the remote southern coast of Japan, concealed by layers of mist and mythology, lies the hauntingly beautiful island of Yakushima. A land of rain and dreams, this emerald isle is draped in ancient forests, so dense and alive, they feel like the lungs of the planet. The island's crown jewel is its primeval cedar trees, some more than 7,000 years old, silent giants with bark like woven armor, roots sprawling like frozen rivers through the mossy floor. As you step beneath their towering canopies, the forest swallows the world. Time becomes irrelevant. Sunlight filters through layers of green, refracted by moisture, creating an ethereal glow that lingers in the air. The soundscape is hypnotic. Raindrops tapping leaves, the distant rustle of deer, the occasional call of a yaku macaque. Every path feels sacred, every stone a relic of some older, forgotten civilization. The Jomonsugi, the island's most revered tree, stands like a monument to eternity. Reaching it requires a journey through winding trails, footbridges over roaring rivers, and moments of awe so profound they stop you mid-step. It's no surprise this enchanted realm inspired the Studio Ghibli film Princess Mononoke. Nature here does not simply surround you, it possesses you. In Yakushima, the forest is not background. It is alive, watching, welcoming, waiting. And once you walk beneath its dripping leaves, something inside you quietly changes. Now travel across the world to Slovenia, where the quiet brilliance of Lake Bohinj awaits. Cradled in the Julian Alps like a secret the mountains have chosen to keep. Unlike its more famous cousin, Lake Bled, Bohinj doesn't ask for your attention. It simply exists, waiting to be discovered by those willing to go a little further, to look a little deeper. The lake is glacial, and it shows. Its water, clear as crystal, reflects the sky so precisely that you forget where the lake ends and the heavens begin. Canoes glide silently across the surface, their paddles leaving barely a ripple. The surrounding forests, thick and lush, drop steeply into the lake's edge, as if the trees themselves are peering in. But it's not just the visuals, it's the feel of it, the stillness, the way the air carries the scent of moss and river stones. In the early hours of morning, mists curl off the lake like fingers, soft and pale, and the world becomes a watercolor painting. Local shepherds guide their flocks along ancient trails, and the distant chime of cowbells floats across the water, a sound unchanged for centuries. High above the lake, the Vogel cable car lifts you gently into the clouds, revealing a panorama so vast and untouched, it steals your breath. In spring, wildflowers spill across the alpine meadows like confetti, while in winter, the same slopes become a quiet haven for skiers gliding through powdered snow. Every season here has its voice, its color, its song. Yet perhaps the most spellbinding part of Lake Bohinj is the feeling you carry away with you, that you've touched something pure, that you found a piece of the world still ruled by beauty instead of spectacle. And deep within this poetic silence, you begin to understand. Places like these aren't made just for sightseeing. They're made to be felt, to be remembered, and to remind us that wonder still exists. You just have to know where to look. On the northeast coast of Madagascar, where the rainforest kisses the reef and lemurs leap from tree to tree like echoes of a forgotten age, lies Masawala National Park. It is the island's largest protected area and yet almost no one outside this hemisphere has ever heard of it. It is raw, wild, glorious. The trees here stretch skyward in a fever of green, their trunks wrapped in vines as thick as ropes. Rain falls in sudden bursts, then vanishes. The forest floor steams, and the call of exotic birds twines with the growl of hidden chameleons and the chatter of unseen primates. Red-ruffed lemurs perch high in the canopy, watching with curious golden eyes. Step beyond the trees, and you find a coast untouched. Coral reefs ripple just offshore in clear waters, home to sea turtles, clownfish, and the occasional passing whale. The beach is not manicured. It's wild, golden, and empty, except for driftwood and the occasional crab retreating into the surf. To explore Masuala is to immerse yourself in a place where Earth still behaves as it did long before humanity carved borders and roads into its skin. You come here not to conquer, but to yield, not to see, but to witness. Beyond the well-traveled paths of eastern Nevada, where vast valleys cradle distant memories in ancient sky, lies the hidden wild of Weipa Spring Wilderness. It is not the kind of place you stumble upon. You must seek it, earn it. Tucked within the Seaman Range, this landscape unfolds like a forgotten tale, dense, mysterious, and humming with the presence of the past. Here, forests of ponderosa pine rise like columns in a cathedral, their orange bark glowing in the early light. It is the largest stand of its kind in eastern Nevada, stretching across ridges and gullies, casting long, cool shadows over the land. The scent of resin and crushed needles follows your every step, grounding you in a place where life clings fiercely to even the driest soil. Beneath this canopy, sunlight breaks in golden rays, illuminating the forest floor in dappled warmth. Wander further, and the land begins to twist. Shale and sandstone rise in sculpted forms, hoodoos leaning against the sky like ancient sentinels. Natural arches carve windows through stone, framing vistas of layered ridgelines and sky. And then there are the canyons, narrow and serpentine, where walls of volcanic rock loom high overhead, decorated with the faded etchings of time itself. Petroglyphs whisper from the stone, left behind by those who knew these valleys before maps, before borders, before names. The sound here is not silence, but depth. The wind, the rustle of mule deer through the underbrush, the cry of a hawk circling high above. It all becomes a language, unspoken but understood. Weipa Spring is not just a refuge for wildlife. It is a living memory of Nevada's untamed soul. You don't conquer this place. You listen to it. You let it reveal itself slowly, like a story told in riddles. There are no guided tours, no manicured trails, only footprints and intuition, guiding you along dry washes and rocky ledges. At night, campfires flicker low, their light barely reaching the darkness that presses in from all sides. The stars here are wild and endless, strewn across the heavens with reckless abundance. Coyotes call across the gulches, their voices carrying far under the clear sky. In Weipa Spring Wilderness, you touch something elemental, not just nature, but raw creation, the heave and sigh of earth in its purest form. It's not just a place to visit, it's a place to remember who you are beneath everything else. Cradled in the arms of Montenegro's untouched interior, a land of towering peaks and primeval forest guards, a secret that murmurs like a lullaby through pine and stone. Biogradska Gora, one of the last 3 virgin forests in Europe, breathes with a rhythm older than memory. It is not a place that shouts its wonders. It breathes them out in silence, in the crunch of leaves underfoot, in the dappled light that slips like whispered gold. between towering beech trees that have stood for half a millennium. At the heart of the forest lies Biogradsko Lake, a still and sacred mirror cradled by the embrace of green. Its waters are so calm they seem untouched by time, reflecting the canopy above so clearly that it's impossible to know where the trees end and their reflections begin. The air is thick with the earthy perfume of moss, lichen, and loam. The forest floor a patchwork quilt of soft decay and sudden blooms. Every step brings you deeper, not just into the forest, but into something elemental. Wooden pathways meander like thought through the undergrowth, guiding without intruding. Here, the rules of the outside world dissolve. You are no longer a visitor, but a presence within the living library of a forest that remembers the world before maps. Deer flit like shadows in the periphery, and the wind through the branches hums like a forgotten song. Time has no dominion here. Hours stretch and bend, and you begin to understand how the trees have seen centuries come and go without hurry or concern. In Biogradska Gora, nature is not just scenery, it is spirit, an ever-whispering consciousness of bark, leaf, and breath that wraps you in something deeper than beauty. It wraps you in belonging. Hidden deep in the Peruvian Andes, draped in mystery and thick jungle mist, is a place many believe rivals Machu Picchu in both scale and wonder, but remains almost entirely unknown: Choquequirao. Its name means cradle of gold, and walking through its stone terraces and ceremonial platforms feels like treading through the dreams of a forgotten empire. Unlike its famous sibling, Choquequirao sees only a handful of visitors each day, and reaching it requires effort. A 2-day trek through steep valleys, across rivers and switchbacks that test resolve and reward with silence. And then, suddenly, the jungle parts. Massive agricultural terraces fan across the mountainside like emerald wings. Llama-shaped stone carvings stare out from mossy walls. Grand staircases, once used by Incan priests and messengers, rise toward the heavens. The ruins are alive with solitude. You can sit in the central plaza and hear only the rustle of wind through trees, the distant cry of hawks, the beating of your own heart. There is no fence, no tour group, no rush. Only you and the presence of something vast and sacred. At sunset, the site catches fire, stone and sky blending in a blaze of orange and purple. Choquequirao isn't just a lost city. It's a living threshold into the soul of a civilization that still lingers in the shadows of the Andes. And now, to a place where the water writes poetry in turquoise, and the land folds in whispers of gold and limestone. The El Nido region of Palawan in the Philippines. Often overshadowed by more tourist-heavy islands, El Nido remains one of Earth's most cinematic seascapes, where every turn reveals a postcard that outshines the last. Here, limestone karsts shoot from emerald waters like the bones of ancient titans. The cliffs are sheer and primal, carpeted with jungle, their bases lapped by translucent seas. To move between them is to glide through a natural cathedral, the air scented with salt and wild orchids. Secret lagoons lie hidden within these formations, accessed only through narrow fissures in the rock, sometimes requiring you to dive underwater to reach the paradise on the other side. Small boats, known as bancas, skim across the waves carrying fresh seafood, cold coconut juice, and travelers with eyes wide in disbelief. The sea is so clear, it turns boats into shadows and swimmers into dancers on light. At low tide, sandbars stretch out like white silk across the horizon, curving between islands like brushstrokes from an unseen painter. The underwater world here is as intoxicating as the one above. Coral gardens bloom with more color than seems possible, home to sea turtles, reef sharks, and fish in every shape and pattern. Snorkeling off the shore of Minilock Island or diving near Dilumacad feels like descending into a living dream, where each breath becomes slower, each movement more deliberate, in sync with the rhythm of the sea. At dusk, the sun melts behind the limestone silhouettes, staining the sky with impossible pinks and molten oranges. Bats flutter out from caves, fishermen pull in their nets, and the air grows still, holding its breath in reverence for the day. El Nido is not just a destination, it is a collection of reverent moments, of quiet laughter echoing in secret coves, of footprints left on islands you may never find again, of salt dried on skin and starlight caught in wet hair. And as night falls across this archipelago, the world feels impossibly vast and achingly intimate all at once. On the far edge of the Azores archipelago, in the shadow of the Atlantic's endless swell, the island of Flores emerges like a forgotten Eden. Here, cliffs fall away into sapphire depths. Waterfalls spill from sky to sea in impossible plunges, and crater lakes shimmer like the eyes of ancient gods gazing skyward. Flores is green in a way the word cannot contain, lush, feral, eternal. There are no mega resorts here, no sprawling developments, just quiet villages clinging to the hillsides, their red-tiled roofs barely interrupting the waves of wild hydrangeas. Cobbled streets curve like veins through the island, connecting pastures to ports, forests to fields. Cows graze freely. The sea crashes endlessly. Time slows, then forgets to move at all. Drive inland, and the terrain changes with every bend. Dense forests give way to mossy plateaus, and volcanic craters cradle lakes so still they reflect not just the clouds, but your very soul. At Poço da Ribeira do Ferreiro, dozens of waterfalls stream down a jungle-clad cliff in perfect symmetry, feeding a pond so serene it seems carved from a dream. To walk the trails of Flores is to surrender to the earth's wildest beauty. You don't need a guide. You don't need a plan. You just need to follow the sound of water, and it will lead you home. In a land shaped by extremes, where silence is deeper than thought and space seems to expand with every blink, there lies a cavern system so intricate, so delicately veiled, that its existence feels like a myth whispered among desert winds. This is the Lehman Caves, a realm of shadow and stone hidden beneath the surface of Great Basin National Park. From the outside, the mountain appears still, solemn, unknowable. But step inside, and you enter a world sculpted by time and water with otherworldly patience. The temperature drops, the air grows still, and then it unfolds. Galleries of mineral wonder, passageways etched with precision and beauty, ceilings that drip with shimmering daggers of calcite. Lehman Caves isn't vast in scale like the caverns of other states. It is intimate, intricate. The Grand Palace, the largest chamber, lives up to its name with elaborate formations that seem plucked from fantasy. Shields of rock, thin, curved, and impossibly balanced, line the walls like forgotten relics. Stalactites hang like chandeliers, their crystal tips glinting in the artificial light. Stalagmites rise in stoic silence, shaped over eons by single drops of water falling from the same exact point above. There are flowstones here that look like frozen waterfalls, their surfaces polished by time. Curtains of rock ripple like fabric caught mid-motion. In one chamber, the formation known as the parachute seems to defy gravity, a delicate veil of stone suspended between ceiling and floor. Light is used sparingly and respectfully, illuminating only what needs to be seen, leaving the rest in gentle mystery. But it's not just beauty that fills these caves. It's a sense of depth that goes beyond geology. Standing in the silence, it becomes easy to imagine ancient spirits dwelling here, or the whispered prayers of those who might have once found shelter in its protective dark. You can feel it in your chest, that subtle pressure of stone and space. It's as if the mountain is listening, and has always been. The guides here are storytellers, blending science with legend. They speak in reverent tones, drawing attention to the fragility of the formations. A single touch can leave oil that halts the growth of a stalactite for centuries. And so, you walk slowly, respectfully. Every step echoes. Every breath feels shared with the cavern itself. Outside, the mountain rises again into sky. The transition from underground to daylight is disorienting. The brightness is blinding at first, but you leave changed. A little quieter, a little more in awe of the world's unseen miracles. Lehman Caves does not clamor for attention. It waits. And for those who descend into its mystery, it offers a glimpse into the Earth's slow, secret soul. Far from any main highway, cradled by the fierce quiet of Nevada's volcanic highlands, lies a place where the Earth burns with color. Monte Cristo's castle. It's not marked on most tourist maps, nor does it welcome crowds. Instead, it sits in solitude, tucked into the Monte Cristo range like a well-kept secret. But those who find it discover something extraordinary. A riot of rock and pigment, frozen mid-chaos, where the desert explodes with surreal form. The formations here rise from the ground like ancient fortresses, spires, towers, and battlements carved by wind and time. In a remote valley of northern Portugal, where terraced vineyards spill like cascading green ribbons down steep hillsides, a place exists that seems painted by the hands of dreamers. Cistelo, often called the Little Portuguese Tibet, is a village suspended between sky and slope, where ancient footpaths snake through an undulating sea of green. The landscape is sculpted by generations of human harmony with the land. Each terrace carved from the mountainside, a testament to patience, to resilience, to a slower, wiser way of life. Stone houses cluster along narrow lanes, their walls warm with the soft hues of time, their windows peering out over an expanse that defies belief. The air carries the scent of earth and distant rain, of grape leaves and wood smoke. There are no engines here, only the occasional clatter of hooves or the rustle of sheep brushing past stone fences as they're guided by quiet shepherds along routes centuries old. Even the river, the Vez, moves gently through the valley, its waters clear and sunlit, cradled by ancient stones smoothed by time. Above the village, the terraces stretch like echoes of forgotten civilizations, layer upon layer of cultivated symmetry, each one a step toward the heavens. In spring, the landscape erupts with life. The fields flash with wildflowers, the vines glisten with new growth, and the hills seem to breathe. During golden hour, the terraces glow like stacked coins beneath a descending sun, and the light lingers, unwilling to part from such serene beauty. Fog rolls in with the grace of a sigh, blanketing the valleys in soft silver, leaving only the peaks exposed like islands above a dreaming sea. But it's not just the view that casts a spell. It's the silence, the gentleness of movement, the slow unfolding of life lived in tune with the breath of the land. You walk the trails and hear your own heartbeat more clearly. You rest beside a stone wall, and feel the warmth of centuries pressed into the rock. A dog might trail behind you for a while. No leash, no words, just shared quiet. Locals greet you not with rehearsed welcomes, but with a nod, a glance that says, "We understand something here that's easy to forget elsewhere." By nightfall, the stars awaken above Sistelo like ancient storytellers returning to finish their tales. There are no city lights to wash them out, only the hush of the mountains and the soft chorus of crickets in the grass. The terraces, now hidden in the dark, still hold the memory of sunlight. The village exhales. A candle flickers in a window. The scent of bread drifts through a shutter. And for a moment, beneath that endless, eternal sky, it is enough simply to be. In the icy stillness of the Arctic, where glaciers groan and light plays in ethereal silence, lies an island seldom spoken of, almost mythic in its remoteness. Senja, Norway's secret northern crown. Overshadowed by the fame of the Lofoten Islands, Senja remains wild, raw, and gloriously untouched, a sculpted masterpiece where jagged mountains rise like fangs from deep fjords, and roads cling to cliffs in a ballet of engineering and nature. In summer, the midnight sun bathes the landscape in a gold that never dies, illuminating peaks that pierce the sky like cathedral spires. Hike to the summit of Segla, and the world drops away. Beneath you, a sheer cliff falls into the glistening fjord, while the sea stretches endless, breathing fog and light. Eagles circle in solemn majesty, and the wind speaks in hushed reverence. In winter, the land transforms again, swathed in snow and silence, with the northern lights cascading across the heavens like rivers of flame. Villages here feel like remnants of another age, weathered houses huddled against the cold, boats resting quietly on mirrored harbors, and fishermen casting nets as they've done for generations. The ocean whispers to the rocks, and the mountains loom with myth. Senja is not simply scenic, it is cinematic. Every corner a frozen frame of epic wonder. Here the earth is a storyteller, and every cliff, wave, and starlit sky is a verse in an ancient, never-ending saga. And now, to a land that seems sculpted by the gods in molten fire and cooled by ancient winds, the black sand beaches of Vik í Mýrdal in Iceland. The landscape here is contradiction made perfect. Fierce, delicate, violent, still. You arrive on a road that seems to slice through the end of the world, long, straight, empty. On one side, the North Atlantic roars in eternal motion. On the other, jagged green cliffs rise like teeth from the sea. Between them, the beach stretches in an endless strip of obsidian sand, glittering with fine volcanic ash, framed by basalt columns that resemble organ pipes carved by a celestial hand. Waves slam the shore with primal force. They don't lap, they crash, howl, drag. The sneaker waves here are legendary, unpredictable, powerful, and merciless. Standing on the black sand, the wind whipping around you, the sound of the sea thundering in your chest, it's impossible not to feel small, insignificant, but somehow more alive than ever. A short hike brings you to Reynisfjara, where stone sea stacks, the Reynisdrangar, rise from the surf like petrified giants. Local legend says they were trolls, frozen at dawn as they tried to drag ships from the ocean. They stand motionless now, cloaked in mist and mythology, watching over a shore that feels older than time. Nearby, the Dyrhólaey promontory juts into the sea, a wind-lashed cliff from which puffins dive and sea spray leaps into the sky. Look down, and the black beach curves endlessly beneath you. Look up, and clouds race overhead like ink across the parchment of the sky. This place is cinematic in the purest sense. Not just beautiful, but breathtaking in a way that rearranges your soul. It doesn't feel like Earth. It feels like memory, like dream, like myth. Then, when you least expect it, the clouds part, the wind softens, and a shaft of light strikes the ocean in golden silence. You stand there, rooted in volcanic sand, and realize this is what it means to witness the sublime. Shaped by time and veiled by isolation, the village of Gásir lies on the northern coast of Iceland, along the cold shores of Eyjafjörður. Most who visit this country never hear its name, but in the quiet solitude just beyond the modern city of Akureyri, remnants of a once bustling medieval trading post whisper stories to the wind. Moss creeps between ancient stones, and black sand merges with tufts of grass bent by Arctic winds. The silence here is palpable, broken only by the distant echo of seabirds and the soft lapping of waves against a forgotten shore. There are no tourist trails, no guiding signs, just the trace of human lives now swallowed by the earth. Yet as the mist rolls in from the fjord, the skeletal outlines of turf houses and blackened timbers emerge like ghosts. This is not the Iceland of postcards. This is a place suspended in time, where the hum of electricity feels like blasphemy. The sky stretches endlessly, brushed with streaks of steel gray and hints of lavender at twilight. And beneath it all, Gásir remains, a monument to the forgotten, carved into the land itself. The kind of place you don't just visit. You absorb it, quietly and reverently, as if walking through a living dream. The Jarbidj River winds like a liquid thread through deep chasms and grassy flats, fed by glacial springs that run cold even in the blaze of midsummer. Elk drift silently between the trees like ghosts, their antlers catching the light of dawn. If you are still enough, long enough, you might hear the deliberate pad of a mountain lion moving unseen across the ridgeline. There are no roads here, no lodges, only trails that vanish into thickets and rise again along cliff sides, guiding the willing to places unnamed and unspoiled. One such path takes you to Cougar Peak, a formidable summit draped in alpine silence, where the air thins and your breath becomes part of the wind. Below, fields of lupine sway in gentle unison, painting the ground with violet hues as though the sky had dropped pieces of itself. Here, time bends, measured not in minutes, but in moments of awe. The sun cuts across the valley in golden shafts, spotlighting hidden waterfalls that shimmer like molten glass. To wander through Jarbidj is not merely to explore, it is to surrender, to give yourself over to something older, something wild and unyielding. Here, solitude is not loneliness, but a sacred communion with a land that has never been tamed. The silence is complete, the kind that reveals how much noise we carry with us in our ordinary lives. In Jarbidj, you learn to let it go, one breath at a time. A road winds gently upward. There is a lake high in the Albanian Alps, where the sky forgets to end and the mountains kneel around a body of water so still it seems enchanted. Siri I Kalter, the blue eye, is more than just a spring. It is a sapphire gemstone cradled by ancient forests and wild silence. At first sight, the vibrant turquoise center draws the eyes like a spell. Then, as you watch deeper, it turns darker, richer, a portal to some forgotten world beneath the earth's skin. Water bubbles up from an underground cavern at unfathomable depths, so deep that even divers have yet to touch the bottom. The cold that rises from it tastes like stone and glacial wind, and the liquid clarity allows you to see every glinting pebble and strand of moss resting on the bed far below. The forest surrounding the spring is thick and brooding. Moss carpets the trunks of trees like nature's velvet, and sunlight pierces through the canopy in long, golden beams that look like stairways to other worlds. The soundscape is one of rustling leaves, the occasional flutter of wings, and the gentle churn of water seeping up from the depths. There's no road hum, no airplane echo, only the rhythm of the earth breathing slowly. Travelers who find it often sit for long moments without words, as though the air itself has become too sacred to shatter. Even the birds seem quieter here, as if whispering secrets they don't want the trees to hear. The blue eye doesn't shout its beauty, it hums with it. A slow, ancient song played by water, light, and time. It feels less like visiting a spring, and more like being permitted, just for a moment, to witness something the world wasn't entirely sure it wanted to share. Tucked within the folds of northern Albania, where the Dinaric Alps soar toward the sky and valleys remain lost in silence, lies a village nearly untouched by time. Theth. Enclosed by dramatic limestone peaks, this alpine hamlet whispers secrets of an old world, where shepherds still guide their flocks through mist-covered meadows, and stone houses with wooden roofs perch like sentinels on the green slopes. The road to Theth is not an easy one. Narrow, winding, and carved precariously into mountainsides. But it is precisely this seclusion that has preserved its soul. As the sun rises over the Valbona Pass and spills gold over the valley, Theth emerges like a painting brought to life. Waterfalls cascade from cliffs wrapped in shadow. The Gruna's waterfall crashes into a basin of impossibly turquoise water, its roar echoing through ancient pine forests. A short hike leads to the Blue Eye of Theth, a hidden spring of crystal clarity that glows from within, as if lit by magic. The air carries the scent of juniper and stone, and the only traffic here is a shepherd leading his goats or a hiker pausing to absorb the surreal stillness. The Church of Theth, white and humble, stands quietly against the mountain's strength, a symbol of endurance and belief. Time slows here. The stars at night are diamond-sharp, scattered across a sky so vast and untouched, it seems prehistoric. There is no Wi-Fi to tether you to the modern world, only the soft hum of wind through the valley, the clang of cowbells in the distance, and the unspoken invitation to forget, if only for a moment, everything else. And then, there is the enchanted river of Hinatuan, a radiant, impossibly blue stream flowing through the jungles of Mindanao in the Philippines. But calling it a river is like calling a cathedral a house. This is water as spellwork, as dream. It emerges from an underground spring with a color so intense, so sapphire, that legends claim it was dyed by the tears of mythical beings. As you approach the mouth of the river, the jungle hushes. Light filters through the canopy and fractured beams, dappling the ground and illuminating the water as if from within. There is a place near the riverbank where the water deepens suddenly into an unfathomable chasm. Locals say it is bottomless. Divers, even with the most advanced equipment, have never touched its end. Its depth is unknowable, its beauty uncontainable. And each day, precisely at noon, the river is closed to swimmers as fish are fed in a ritual known as the fish feeding ceremony. The fish rise from the abyss like spirits from another world, sleek and shimmering beneath the glass-clear surface. You do not swim in the enchanted river. You float. The cool water wraps around you like silk, weightless and gentle. Looking down into its depths, you see your own reflection mingled with shadows of another realm. It is not a place you visit. It is a place you remember, as though it's always lived in your dreams. Surrounding the river, the jungle is alive in every direction. Parrots flash like painted brushstrokes across the sky, while the wind rustles bamboo leaves in a language only the forest knows. The scent of wet earth and blooming orchids hangs heavy in the air. Time slows here, dissolves, until only your heartbeat and the whispering water remain. In this pocket of the world, the line between the natural and the supernatural blurs, and for a brief moment, you become part of something much older than yourself. In the mountains of northern Vietnam, hidden among emerald rice terraces and cloaked in mist, the village of Pu Luong waits like a secret kept by the clouds. A place so peaceful that the rush of water over bamboo aqueducts and the rustling of palm leaves form the soundtrack of your journey. The air smells of lemongrass and earth, thick with the moisture of the mountains. Every turn in the trail reveals a new miracle, a hand-carved stilt house suspended above jungle valleys, or a sudden opening where golden fields stretch like a sea into the fading sun. Here, the Thai and Muong ethnic groups live with the land, not against it. They plant rice by hand and weave cloth with stories. Children chase chickens through terraced fields, and elders smoke pipes on porches overlooking the valley. There's a rhythm to Pu Luong, an unseen pulse that moves through the trees and into your bones. It's not just beautiful, it's alive. At sunrise, the valley glows. Mist clings to every hill like a blanket, and the light spills in through the canopy like warm milk. By noon, the sky is endless blue, and the waterfalls thunder like applause from the mountains themselves. In the evening, fireflies gather like scattered stars, and the scent of jasmine carries on the breeze. Pu Luong is not a place you find on a map. It's a feeling, an awakening, a reminder that wonder doesn't always shout. Sometimes, it just whispers. The earth here breaks open. Cracks and crevices stretch like veins across a landscape sculpted not with gentleness, but with fire and erosion, water and time. This is Cathedral Gorge, a marvel hidden in plain sight in southeastern Nevada, where towers of bentonite clay rise like ancient cathedrals from the desert floor. Their spires catch the light in hues of cream, ochre, and russet, shifting with the arc of the sun until the entire canyon appears to pulse with life. Step inside one of the narrow slot canyons, and the world changes. The air cools, the light dims, and suddenly you're walking through a labyrinth formed by rain and millennia. The walls close in around you, pressing gently, carved with delicate vertical fluting like the pipes of a massive organ. In this hush, every footfall becomes a drumbeat. Your breath seems louder. Shadows dance along the stone, elongating and dissolving with each passing minute. The silence is absolute and deeply intimate. One path leads to Miller Point, a high overlook where the canyon unfurls below like a cracked tapestry, glowing in the waning light. From here, the formations seem to stretch to the horizon in soft ripples, each more fantastic than the last. And when dusk arrives, it does so with drama. The sky explodes into a palette of purples and reds, the sandstone catching every hue, holding it for a moment longer than it should. Like a secret, it's reluctant to release. You don't just walk through Cathedral Gorge. You wander, you wonder, you surrender to its strangeness. It is a place that feels forgotten by time, sculpted not just by erosion, but by mystery. A place where silence has a voice, and the land speaks in the language of shadow and stone. In the windswept far north of Scotland, beyond the last outposts of civilization, a raw and ancient drama plays out where the land meets the sea. This is Sandwood Bay, a place where myth lives in the shape of a landscape. It is not easily reached. 4 miles of solitary trail across heathered moors and peat-stained streams. But the reward is a vision that seems too wild, too vast to be real. A beach appears out of nowhere. A mile-long expanse of untouched golden sand, backed by windswept dunes and watched over by cliffs that seem to remember the footsteps of giants. And there, rising like a sentinel from the churning waves, stands Boachail, a sea stack sculpted by centuries of wind and water. Its silhouette cuts into the horizon like a rune, part warning, part welcome. The Atlantic roars against the cliffs with the fury of 1,000 storms, the salt mist curling in the air like the breath of some ancient sea god. And yet, despite its ferocity, Sandwood Bay has a quiet majesty. The wind howls not with chaos, but with clarity. There are no roads, no signs, no fences, just a sense of vastness that settles deep into the soul. Deer move across the land like ghosts. The beach is scattered with driftwood and the shattered remains of shipwrecks, as if the ocean has tried to write its own story here and left the pages in pieces for you to read. The light never stays still. At one moment, the bay is golden and ethereal. The next, it's cloaked in steel and shadow. And all the while, the silence presses in, not empty but immense, filled with the thunder of the sea and the slow, eternal heartbeat of the earth. High in the cloud-kissed mountains of northern Vietnam, there exists a village draped in fog and folklore, a place where the land seems suspended between myth and reality. Hoang Su Phi. Far removed from the flow of modern tourism, this remote district in Ha Giang province is a revelation of ancient culture and surreal beauty. Here, the land folds into waves of emerald rice terraces, curved and layered like the rings of a sleeping dragon. Each step carved into the hillside by generations past is an ode to patience and harmony with the earth. When dawn breaks, the entire valley becomes a watercolor dream. The terraces shimmer with dew, reflecting pink skies and drifting clouds, as if the heavens have stooped to rest upon the fields. During harvest, the greens turn to gold, and the mountains glow as if lit from within. The air is crisp, pure, tinged with wood smoke and the soft aroma of growing rice. Hmong and Red Dao villagers, adorned in vibrant traditional garments, tend to their fields or walk narrow trails, their presence part of the rhythm of this enchanted place. It is not just the views that linger in memory, but the quiet dignity of life here, rooted, resilient, and untouched by haste. Trekking through Hoang Su Phi means wandering through time. You cross footbridges over whispering rivers, climb ridges where wild orchids bloom, and at night, under a sky littered with stars, you realize that this hidden sanctuary holds something the modern world has forgotten. The elegance of living slowly, deeply, and in tune with the breath of the mountains. Somewhere along the gilded curve of the French Riviera, where the Mediterranean laps gently against stone harbors and yachts bob like glistening sculptures, there exists a country so compact it seems drawn with a jeweler's hand. Monaco. A sovereign whisper of a nation, nestled between sea and cliff, between decadence and stillness, between speed and silence. Step off the train in Monte Carlo, and the city unveils itself like a luxury timepiece, precise, brilliant, impossibly intricate. Sunlight reflects off marble facades, and polished Bentleys glide down boulevards lined with manicured palms. It is a city engineered to impress, but beneath the glamour, Monaco breathes with a different kind of beauty. A slower pulse, a quieter seduction. The sea is everywhere. Azure, glassy, it stretches from the port to the horizon in a silk sheet gradient of color. From the prince's palace perched atop the rocher, the entire country unfurls at your feet. Steep streets tumbling toward the harbor, gardens carved into cliffside, church towers rising like whispered secrets above red-tiled roofs. Watch the sun dip into the sea from the Jardin Exotique, where rare succulents cling to limestone, and the world smells of salt, heat, and blooming cactus. But night in Monaco is where the magic slips its gloves off. The lights of Monte Carlo ignite like stars reborn, golden, electric, infinite. The casino stands at the center, its Belle Epoque elegance practically glowing, where fortunes shift in silence beneath chandeliers. Nearby, the open-air Opera de Monte Carlo echoes with arias that drift out over the terraces and into the soft sea air. And then, in moments of stillness, early morning walks along the harbor, the hush of an empty garden, you realize that this place, so famed for spectacle, also holds space for something subtler. Reflection, intimacy, a kind of reverence for beauty meticulously maintained. Where the jungles of Central America brush against the mountains of Guatemala lies an ancient wonder hidden in the canopy, cinematography. A natural limestone bridge spans the Cahabon River, and atop it, a chain of turquoise pools descends like a staircase sculpted by gods. From the forest floor, the water glows with an otherworldly light, too blue to seem real, as it slips quietly over polished stone. Surrounding it, the rainforest seethes with life, howler monkeys groaning in the treetops, hummingbirds darting through shafts of light, and butterflies with wings like stained glass. To reach Cinematography, you pass through winding mountain roads barely wide enough for one vehicle, through villages where Quechua Maya still speak their ancient tongue and sell handmade chocolate by the roadside. The limestone beneath the pools hides a roaring torrent that vanishes underground, carving caverns filled with echo and shadow. Some travelers explore them by candlelight, swimming through subterranean rivers, their flickering flames illuminating glistening rock formations. Above, the pools remain calm, serene, sacred, untouched. There's something transcendent about floating in those crystalline waters as mist gathers on the forest edge and parrots call from unseen perches. You forget time. You forget borders. You remember only that places like this still exist, sheltered from the noise of the world, waiting for those quiet enough to hear them. Rising out of the Great Basin like the spine of some ancient beast, the Toyabe Range stretches for over 100 miles, long, lean, and seldom touched. There is no fanfare to announce it, no billboard or grand welcome sign, just a change in the horizon line, a sudden undulation of land that beckons the restless heart forward. Here lies one of Nevada's best-kept treasures, a realm of high-altitude meadows, alpine crests, and unbroken silence. The Toyabe Crest Trail is the crown jewel of this range. It winds through 75 miles of staggering elevation and breathtaking variety, crossing ridgelines where the wind sings freely and dipping into valleys that pulse with wildflowers and untouched streams. Few make the full journey, but those who do speak of it with a kind of reverence, as though recalling a sacred rite of passage. Above 10,000 feet, the world thins. You feel it in your lungs, in the slow rhythm of your steps, in the way your thoughts quiet down to a kind of stillness. The trail offers no distractions, only clarity. Marmots scamper over talus slopes, their whistles piercing the air. Golden eagles spiral overhead. Wild horses, descendants of those brought centuries ago, roam the lower reaches, manes rippling like silk in the desert wind. Every bend in the trail reveals a different facet of wonder. An alpine tarn catching the morning light like a gemstone. A cluster of quaking aspens shivering in concert. A ridge that drops away to nothingness on both sides, leaving you suspended between earth and sky. Time here loses its grip. You measure the day not by hours, but by how many mountain passes you've crossed. How many times your breath has been taken away by the view. And then there are the storms. Swift and theatrical, they roll in over the ridges with little warning, thunder growling in the bones of the mountains. Lightning dances along distant peaks, while rain sweeps across the land in silver sheets. And then, just as quickly, the sky clears. The sun returns. The mountains glisten, and the trail goes on as though nothing happened. Camping here means sleeping under stars sharp enough to pierce the soul. The Milky Way becomes a river, and every falling star seems impossibly close. Coyotes sing in the valleys, and somewhere far off, a mountain lion screams its ancient claim into the darkness. This is a place that doesn't just demand your attention, it reshapes your sense of what it means to be alive. In the Toyabe Range, the world returns to its wildest self. It asks nothing from you but presence, and in return, it offers everything. Tucked deep within the Czech Republic's Bohemian Switzerland National Park is a gateway not just to another place, but to another imagination. Pravchitska Brana, the largest natural sandstone arch in Europe, rises from the forest like a relic of myth. At first, you may think it an illusion, a trick of shadow and foliage, but as the trees part and your eyes adjust to its colossal span, reality surrenders. The arch towers above like a bridge to nowhere, its curve impossibly smooth, worn by eons of wind and weather into something at once fragile and invincible. Surrounding the arch, jagged sandstone towers erupt from the earth like the ruins of some forgotten castle, overgrown and untouched by time. The silence here is vast, broken only by the soft rustle of pine needles underfoot and the occasional echo of a hawk crying overhead. Morning mist clings to the rocks, giving everything a spectral glow, while trails meander like veins through the forest below, guiding you through labyrinthine gorges and sudden clearings. An old chateau stands nearby, red-roofed and half-swallowed by forest, its windows like watching eyes. From its terrace, you look out not just over land, but into legend. The views stretch into Germany, into layers of hills and shadows that feel less like a landscape and more like a whispered story. In autumn, the forest burns with color, scarlet, amber, gold, each tree igniting the ground with flame. In winter, snow hushes the world, and the arch becomes a monument to quiet strength. Pravchitska Brana does not demand attention. It commands it by being precisely what it is: impossible, enduring, and more beautiful than anything built by human hands. In the highlands of northern Vietnam, hidden within folds of cloud and layered rice terraces, the town of Hue Thai exists in a dream state between sky and earth. It doesn't announce itself. You arrive by winding roads that twist through valleys carved by time, and when you reach it, you feel as though you've crossed not just space, but centuries. Hue Thai rests on the edge of the clouds, literally. A sea of mist rolls over the valleys each morning, spilling like milk across mountains dotted with Hmong and Hani villages. Homes made of mud walls and thatched roofs cluster on hillsides. Golden rice paddies cascading below like scales of a sleeping dragon. The air here is different, moist, floral, laced with wood smoke and the distant clink of livestock bells. Everything moves slowly, softly. During the harvest season, the terraces explode in color. Amber gold, sunlit jade, deep umber. It feels like a living painting, changing hue with every breeze. Children run barefoot along the narrow earth edges that divide each tier, their laughter echoing across the valley. Women in traditional dress, colorful and layered, work the fields with quiet grace, their conical hats bobbing against the mountainside as they move like part of the land itself. Clouds rise from the valley floor like ghosts, thick, endless, swallowing and revealing the world in minutes. One moment you're standing above a green kingdom bathed in golden light, and the next, the entire landscape vanishes into white. In those moments, the only thing that exists is you, the sky, and the heartbeat of the earth beneath your feet. Travelers rarely make it here. The journey is long, the roads uncertain, but those who do never forget it. Wai Tai isn't a destination, it's a sensation, a feeling that lingers behind your eyes long after you've left. Now the horizon shifts, and the lush green highlands of central Papua New Guinea unfurl like a living tapestry. Within this maze of river valleys and cloud-wreathed peaks lies Lake Kutubu, emerald, immaculate, untouched. Its surface reflects the sky like a mirror laid upon the earth, ringed by thick forests and villages built from palm and bamboo. The lake appears almost otherworldly, a secret pool of ancient life hidden from all but the most determined traveler. Few roads penetrate this remote region, and fewer still dare venture beyond them. The people of the Kutubu region have lived here for generations, their way of life largely unaltered by the modern world. Canoes glide silently across the water, paddled by villagers whose traditions are steeped in myth and reverence for the land. Their homes sit perched above the lake on wooden stilts, and at night, warm lamplight glows through hand-woven walls like distant stars scattered across a jungle sky. Beneath the surface, the lake holds rare species of fish found nowhere else on Earth, including the sleek and shimmering Kutubu rainbow fish, a living jewel in liquid glass. But it's the air here that lingers in memory long after you've gone. It's thick with scent, ferns, wood smoke, rain, and sound, the hush of trees, the far-off beat of a garamit drum. There's something sacred in the stillness, something ancient in the echo. Lake Kutubu doesn't just exist, it breathes. High in the East Humboldt Range, near the spine of Nevada's rugged backcountry, a single mirror of blue rests nestled within a ring of jagged peaks. Angel Lake. Its name sounds like a metaphor, something too poetic to be real, but the sight of it silences doubt. The lake lies cradled in a bowl of stone and wildflower-laced meadows, glimmering like a fallen shard of sky. The road that leads here, winding up from the town of Wells, ascends through layers of shifting scenery. Sagebrush plains give way to groves of aspen and pine, and the desert hush deepens into alpine stillness. In summer, the lake's surface is a painter's dream. Brush strokes of emerald and cobalt swirl in the shallows, broken only by the ripple of trout or the slow drifting of mountain clouds reflected in the water. The surrounding cliffs, streaked with mineral veins and aged lichen, rise with stern beauty, protecting this place from the winds and noise of the world below. In the early morning, mists roll over the surface like breath from the mountain itself, curling gently into the sky before vanishing with the first warming light. Wildflowers bloom in a defiant chorus of color along the trails. Purple lupine, Indian paintbrush, and golden aster, flourishing in the brief, brilliant window of summer. The trailhead near the lake's edge offers passage deeper into the high country. A short but steep climb takes you to a hidden ridge where the entire valley unfurls beneath your feet. A vast ocean of desert stretching toward every horizon, while behind you, the mountain still holds snow in secret hollows. And yet, despite its ease of access, Angel Lake remains uncrowded. There are no souvenir shops, no cafes serving espresso beside the trail. Just the sound of wind rustling through the evergreens and birdsong echoing faintly from rock to rock. You may find yourself entirely alone at the lake's edge, the only witness to a sunset that turns the sky to fire and the cliffs to bronze. In such moments, Angel Lake feels less like a destination and more like a reward for choosing silence over spectacle, solitude over schedule. As the day fades and dusk creeps in, stars begin to show themselves one by one. High in the mountains, far from city light, they gather in dazzling clusters, mirrored faintly on the lake's glassy surface. The silence becomes profound, an embrace. In the heart of Nevada, where few look, Angel Lake waits, timeless, unspoken, complete. Hidden among the jagged peaks of northern Spain's Picos de Europa lies a realm where mist floats like ancient spirits between the mountains, and time stands still between each breath. Bulnes is not a village one stumbles upon. It must be reached by foot or funicular, and even then, it feels as though you've slipped behind the curtain of the ordinary world. Here, stone houses huddle together, as if protecting themselves against the wind, and the air carries the faint scent of chimney smoke and wild herbs drifting from terraced gardens. Shepherds still lead flocks along paths worn into the hillsides by generations of footfall. The cobbled lanes echo with the history of a people who have endured through snowstorms, silence, and solitude. Mountains rise like titans on every side, their cliffs cloaked in swirling fog and crowned in ice. You can hear the call of eagles long before you see them, circling like omens in the sky. Everything here feels larger, more elemental, less like landscape, more like mythology carved into stone and sky. At dawn, the entire valley seems to exhale. The mist dissolves slowly into the light, unveiling waterfalls that stream like silver threads down from secret heights. Every step deeper into Bulnes is a step further away from the constructed world, into something purer, harsher, and yet more comforting in its truth. It's a place that asks nothing but your presence and rewards it with silence and the sweep of unfiltered nature. There are no storefronts, no signs, no instructions, just the raw, weather-worn face of a mountain village still whispering in the old tongue. In Bulnes, you do not visit. You return to something your soul remembers. Tucked along the turquoise embrace of the Adriatic Sea, yet hidden from the glamour of Croatia's coastal cities, lies the forgotten archipelago of Lastovo. A sanctuary of pine forests, crystalline coves, and whispering breezes. Lastovo is one of the most remote inhabited islands in the country, an emerald dot where the modern world retreats and nature reigns supreme. Time here stretches like the tides, slow and deliberate. The island's villages, stone-built and sun-washed, climb hillsides in a quiet elegance. Shuttered windows and curved chimneys nod to Venetian history, while the scent of rosemary and salt lingers in the alleys. The sea around Lastovo glows a spectral blue, so clear that you can watch the seabed ripple beneath your boat. It is a diver's dream, a sailor's escape, a poet's muse. Lastovo's crown jewel, however, is the starry sky. This island, protected as part of a nature park, boasts one of the darkest skies in all of Europe. When night falls, the heavens pour down in impossible brilliance. Constellations come alive, and the Milky Way stretches overhead in a luminous arc. It's as if the island's isolation is its gift, offering not only escape but communion. There are no crowds here, no noise, no need to hurry. Only you, the sea, the stars, and a silence so vast it feels like the earth itself exhaling. Lastovo isn't just hidden, it's sacred. There is a corner of northern Albania where the mountains wear snow like a crown, and the rivers run like veins of light through the valleys. This is the Accursed Mountains, a name that carries a sense of foreboding. But the moment your eyes touch this land, you understand that it's not cursed. It's sacred. The Valbona Valley, nestled deep within these jagged peaks, feels like something whispered into existence. The road into the valley winds like a ribbon, tracing the edges of roaring rivers and soaring cliffs. Tiny stone houses appear along the way, perched like secrets held close to the chest of the mountains. The roofs are steep and gray, the fences made of crooked timber, and smoke curls upward in the early morning, as if the earth itself is exhaling. The color palette here is surreal. Crystalline turquoise rivers carved by glacier melt, green meadows dusted with alpine flowers, and peaks the color of old silver looming high above. Hikers traverse old shepherd paths that open up to ridgelines so vast and untouched, it feels like the gods forgot to close the door to heaven. There's a quiet here that's not empty but full of wind, of water, of stories carried for generations. Every stone has a memory. Stay with a local family, and you'll be welcomed with fresh bread, honey still warm from the hive, and mountain tea brewed with wild herbs gathered nearby. Their hospitality is not a performance. It is survival transformed into ritual, giving as a way of life. And as night falls, the sky is unpolluted by anything but starlight. The mountains disappear into shadow, and you realize they were never looming. They were watching. In a forgotten corner of northern Laos, the Nong Kiao Valley snakes through limestone cliffs and jungle peaks like a dream made real. Mist clings to the river each morning, wrapping the mountains in mystery as longboats slide over the glassy surface of the Namu River. This is not Luang Prabang's polished charm or Vang Vieng's chaos. This is where the earth still breathes in silence, and each bend of the river reveals a new secret. The cliffs here rise like dragon spines, vertical and moss-laced, and hidden caves open like mouths to ancient echoes. Villages rest on the riverbanks with palm thatch rooftops and temple bells that chime in the wind. The people move slowly, deliberately, as if each moment deserves to be noticed. Hikers who climb the steep trails that rise above the village are gifted with views that defy language. Ridges and valleys unfurling like layers of silk beneath a sky pierced by light. Nong Kiao is not loud in its majesty. It whispers, a bowl of noodle soup steaming in the mountain chill, a single candle flickering in a bamboo hut, the beat of a drum from a distant festival floating over the water. This is a place where you're not shown beauty, you're immersed in it, and it changes you. On a rocky outcrop above the turquoise embrace of the Aegean Sea, a monastic wonder clings to the cliffs as though carved from the very bones of the mountain itself. The monastery of Panagia Hozoviotisa, on the Greek island of Amorgos, rises like a white whisper against the sheer face of stone, so narrow and high that it almost disappears when viewed from the sea below. It is a miracle of balance and faith, suspended above the water as if caught in eternal prayer. The climb to reach it is a winding path of stone stairs, each turn revealing a little more of the structure, each breath filled with salt air and time carried on the wind. Built in the 11th century, the monastery feels less like architecture and more like a vision. Its whitewashed walls glowing against the cliff, its windows small and humble, like the eyes of monks who have looked out over this same sea for centuries. Upon entering, the world softens. Candlelight flickers against ancient icons, and the scent of incense weaves through the narrow halls. Every surface bears the weight of history. Scraped stone, worn wood, walls kissed by the hands of generations. Outside, the drop is vertiginous. The sea stretches to infinity, a canvas of shifting blue that catches the wind and throws it back as song. The cliffs fall straight to the water, sheer and unyielding, and yet here, the monastery rests, unshaken. The view is not just vast, it is humbling. A reminder of how small we are in the face of sky and sea, and yet how enduring our longing is to reach toward the divine. Panagia Hozoviotissa doesn't impose. It welcomes. It stands not as a monument to religion, but as a love letter written in stone to silence, solitude, and sky. Hidden within the dry, rugged heart of Jordan and eclipsed by the fame of Petra, lies a site of staggering serenity and mystery. Dana Biosphere Reserve. A land caught in perpetual twilight between desert and mountain, its sweeping canyons and plateaus seem sculpted by the breath of the gods. Here, the terrain folds in endless variations. Red sandstone cliffs stacked like ancient books, olive groves clinging to wind-blown terraces, and sun-scorched plateaus that melt into golden horizons. The village of Dana, perched on the edge of a deep gorge, is a scatter of stone houses that seem as old as the rocks themselves. Silence dominates. Occasionally, the bray of a donkey or the call to prayer floats through the dry air. But mostly, there is just wind and space. Space so vast it humbles every thought you carry. Trails lead deep into the reserve, where rare ibex navigate cliff edges with impossible grace, and vultures drift overhead in slow, sacred spirals. At sunset, the canyons glow with fire, shadows long and amber light dripping down stone like molten honey. The stars arrive early and fiercely, painting the sky in crystalline clarity. You feel far from everything, yet intimately connected to something older than language. In Dana, the land does not scream for your attention. It whispers, and in its whispers you find the sacred, the forgotten, the eternal. Where the Atlantic crashes with untamed force against the northwestern coast of Ireland, there lies a place cloaked in mist and forgotten by time. The Slive League cliffs rise nearly 2,000 feet above the roaring sea, taller than the famed cliffs of Moher, but without their crowds, their fences, or their fame. Here, only the wind and your breath keep you company as you stand at the edge of the world. Blanketed in wild grasses and wildflowers, the cliffs undulate toward the horizon, their faces streaked with copper and coal, their bases vanishing into the crashing foam far below. The path along the ridge is narrow and raw, a thread of earth balanced between sky and sea. One misstep, and the abyss awaits. But for those who dare, the view is a baptism in beauty. On clear days, you can see as far as Sligo and the distant Isles of Scotland. On others, the fog swallows the world whole, leaving only the sound of your heartbeat and the cry of gulls wheeling in the gray. This is a land of myth, of selkies and saints, of Celtic gods whispered about in the dark. Local fishermen still bless their boats with age-old rituals, and stone ruins dot the hills like ancient scars. The Slieve League cliffs aren't just Ireland's best-kept secret. They are Ireland at its most primal, where the land meets the spirit in a cathedral of wind and stone. In a forgotten corner of Bosnia and Herzegovina, the world takes a breath and unfolds into the emerald cradle of Krupa na Vrbasu. Here, the Vrbas River curves like a ribbon of living jade through the Dinaric Alps, flanked by cliffs draped in wildflowers and ancient trees. The river doesn't rush, it glides, carrying with it the whispers of centuries and the reflections of sky and stone. Just outside the village, a series of small waterfalls and natural pools shimmer beneath weeping willows, their waters cold and pure as melted snow. There is a bridge here, centuries old, built of pale stone and still holding its graceful arch across the river. Locals call it the Roman Bridge, though its true origins are wrapped in the mists of legend and forgotten stories. It's not grand, but it holds the magic of permanence, of something that has watched time flow by like the river beneath it. Monasteries carved into the cliffs above seem to float in the clouds, their bells echoing down the valley like the call of another world. In the early light, mist curls from the water like incense, cloaking everything in a silver veil. The air smells of moss, wet rock, and the faint sweetness of river blossoms. It's a place where footsteps soften, where voices fall to whispers. The colors are rich and saturated, greens too vibrant to describe, blues that seem impossible outside of dreams. Fishermen in wooden boats drift silently, their movements so still they seem to become part of the landscape. Time forgets itself here. The outside world dims, and in the hush between bird call and breeze, Krupa na Vrbasu invites you to not just look, but to feel, to listen, to breathe, to belong. Deep in the Aegean, far from Santorini's sunsets and Mykonos's glamour, lies the island of Amorgos, where cliffs dive into sapphire seas and time bends to the rhythm of waves. This forgotten jewel of the Cyclades doesn't beckon. It waits, quiet and confident in its own mystery. Narrow trails meander through hillsides thick with thyme and oregano. Whitewashed villages cling to the mountains, their alleyways echoing with silence and the occasional bell from a wandering goat. The jewel of the island is the Hozoviotissa Monastery, improbably carved into the side of a sheer cliff, its blinding white facade peering over the vastness of the sea. To reach it, you climb steps carved from stone, the wind growing stronger with each step. Inside, the air is thick with incense and stillness. Icons gaze down from ancient wooden panels, and oil lamps flicker like stars in a sacred night. Below, the beaches of Agia Anna and Muros await, unspoiled and wild. The sea here is a shade of blue that doesn't seem possible, electric and deep, like the eye of some ancient deity. Days here dissolve into sun and salt, and nights wrap you in skies pierced with constellations. Amorgos doesn't dazzle in the conventional sense. It whispers, enchants, and anchors you. It is a place for those who seek not noise, but meaning. A true hidden sanctuary adrift in the eternal cradle of the sea. Tucked away in the verdant folds of Japan's Kii Peninsula lies a place where legend still lingers in the moss and fog. Nachi no Taki, a waterfall so gracefully veiled by forest, it feels conjured. Most travelers flock to Kyoto or Tokyo, but those who wander further find a path once walked by emperors and monks, the Kumano-Kodo pilgrimage route. Through cedar forests older than memory, across time-worn stone steps slick with dew, the the path finally reveals a vision so perfect it feels painted. A 133-meter ribbon of water, cascading from the heavens beside the blood-red, three-storied Sagantoji pagoda. The air hums with spiritual charge. The scent of wet wood and incense fills your lungs. The roar of the waterfall is steady but soft, more lullaby than thunder. This is not nature in chaos. It is nature in prayer. For over 1,000 years, pilgrims have bathed in these waters and bowed at this spot, believing the cascade to be the earthly embodiment of purity. Even now, the temple bell echoes across the valley, and paper wishes tied to trees flutter like silent songs. You don't just visit Nachi no Taki, you bow to it. You linger in its presence as you would in a shrine. And when you leave, you carry something more than memory. You carry stillness. In the highlands of central Madagascar, far from the beaten paths and bustling coasts, there exists a place so extraordinary, it defies logic and expectation: Tsingy de Bemaraha National Park. Here, the earth itself seems to rise in defiance of gravity. Thousands upon thousands of sharp limestone pinnacles, called Tsingy, pierce the sky like a petrified forest of stone blades. Seen from above, the landscape resembles an ancient maze, as if giants carved their will into the crust of the world. Beneath the razor-sharp towers lies an ecosystem so unique, so sheltered by its own geological armor, that species exist here found nowhere else on Earth. Lemurs leap between the narrow ridges, their silhouettes dancing against the setting sun. Rare birds glide between the spires, their calls echoing through the labyrinth of stone. Even the trees seem to cling to life with a fierce tenacity, growing sideways from vertical cliffs, roots wound tightly in the smallest cracks. Traversing the Tsingy is no ordinary hike, it's an expedition. Suspended walkways stretch across gorges, metal ladders cling to walls like scaffolds, and every step must be careful, deliberate, reverent. The air is dry, clean, infused with the scent of dust and life surviving against the odds. This place was forged in time's furnace, shaped by water and wind and patience beyond comprehension. To walk among the Tsingy is to stand inside the bones of the earth itself, ancient, eternal, and watching. In the volcanic highlands of Rwanda, cloaked in mist and humming with life, lies the emerald sanctuary of Nyungwe Forest. This is one of Africa's oldest rainforests, untouched for millennia, unbowed by time. A place where biodiversity explodes with every breath. Colobus monkeys leap across the canopy in a blur of black and white, and rare orchids bloom in the shadows like secrets unfolding. The forest breathes around you, a rhythmic pulse of rainfall, birdsong, and distant thunder. Trails curl through thick underbrush, leading to swinging canopy bridges that stretch high above the trees. From these airy walkways, you see the forest in layers, moss-draped trunks below, flashes of butterfly wings mid-level, and birds with iridescent feathers darting between the leaves. The air is thick with life, warm and fragrant with damp earth and distant blooms. But Nyungwe's true magic lies in its silence, the kind that deepens your breath and stretches your senses. You walk softer, you listen closer, you notice more. In a world growing louder by the hour, this forest speaks in whispers, reminding you how to hear again. In the far reaches of the Philippine archipelago, far from the glittering beaches of Palawan and the tourist-drenched sands of Boracay, rests a secret whispered only among the most intrepid explorers. Calayan Island. Part of the Babuyan Islands and accessible only by long, weather-dependent boat rides, Kalayan remains pristine, a lush volcanic Eden surrounded by sapphire sea and sky. The coastline is jagged, wild, and theatrical. Waves crash against black cliffs, sending up fountains of white spray. Hidden coves shelter beaches of pale sand where no footprints linger. The most iconic of these is Sibang Cove, a crescent of powdery white embraced by emerald hills, its turquoise waters so clear they seem lit from within. Hike inland, and waterfalls tumble through rainforest, where hornbills call and monitor lizards slink beneath ferns. There is no luxury here. Electricity is sparse. Wi-Fi is a rumor, but in its place is something far more rare: clarity. Nights are painted with stars, and the Milky Way is a shimmering ribbon across the black dome above. The locals, few in number, share stories of sea spirits and weather gods, and offer food cooked over flame with a smile that feels like home. Calayan is the Philippines before postcards, a world of raw elements, wild heartbeats, and unscripted moments. In the snow-draped silence of the Altai Mountains, at the crossroads of Mongolia, Kazakhstan, and Russia, lies a landscape so profound in its solitude that it seems untouched by the passage of time. Lake Khoton. Cradled by larch forests and ringed by golden steppe, the lake glimmers like a mirror to the sky. Its surface so still, you can see the clouds journey across it with perfect clarity. Nomadic families still move with the seasons here, their yurts speckled across the horizon like pearls scattered in the grasslands. Yaks graze at the lake's edge, their reflections caught in the water, while eagles soar overhead, wings stretched wide like banners of freedom. There are no roads that lead here easily, only winding tracks over passes and rivers, only effort rewarded by wonder. When the wind stirs, the lake sighs. When it sleeps, the silence is so complete it humbles. At dawn, mist drapes the land like silk, and the mountains blush with light. In summer, wildflowers bloom in brilliant defiance of the cold, painting the shore in bursts of violet and gold. There are few places left in the world where one can feel so entirely alone, and so entirely at peace. Lake Khoton is not a destination. It's a threshold to something older, deeper, and infinitely still. Hidden beneath the shadow of the Carpathian Mountains, deep within Romania's limestone heart, lies the luminous cavern of Scarășoara Ice Cave, a frozen cathedral formed during the last ice age. Stepping into its mouth is like descending into another epoch. The temperature drops, your breath fogs, and the ceiling above yawns open into a world of ancient frost and bone-white stillness. Inside, shafts of sunlight filter through openings above, igniting the ice in shades of cerulean and pearl. Massive columns rise like titans from the floor, sculpted over millennia by dripping mineral-rich water. It's eerily quiet. Only the occasional crack of shifting ice or the drip of meltwater breaks the hush, echoing like ancient voices in the stillness. Despite its isolation, locals have long revered the cave, speaking of spirits and gods that rest within its depths. A staircase hewn from rock descends through caverns and chambers, some of which hold mummified remains from centuries past. Evidence of ancient burial rites practiced long before modern Romania existed. There are no souvenir shops, no cafes, just the cold breath of the mountain and the ageless beauty beneath it. The Scarășoara Ice Cave doesn't try to impress you. It doesn't need to. It simply is, a monument to permanence in a world of change. There's a silence in the valley of Svaneti that speaks louder than words. Deep in the Caucasus Mountains of Georgia, this ancient land sits cloaked in cloud and myth, as though the peaks themselves are guardians of a forgotten world. Svaneti is wild, unpolished, and achingly beautiful, a place where time has chosen to walk slowly, lingering in stone towers and whispering through alpine winds. The village of Ushguli, one of the highest inhabited settlements in Europe, rests beneath the icy majesty of Mount Shkara. Here, the air is thin and crisp, scented with wood smoke and pine, carrying echoes of chants from medieval churches that stand solemn among the homes. Stone towers, centuries old, puncture the sky like fingers of history, built by the Svan people to protect against raiders and avalanches alike. Their silhouettes against the morning fog feel almost reverent, like the remnants of a civilization carved straight into the bones of the earth. When the sun breaks over the peaks, light spills across the valley in golden ribbons, washing the green hills and narrow paths in color so vivid it feels unreal. Rivers braid their way down the slopes, their water so pure it mirrors the sky, and horses roam freely across meadows studded with wildflowers. There is a sacred kind of stillness here, one that humbles even the loudest heart. Travelers who find their way to Svaneti speak of a shift, of something unnameable that settles in their chest. Perhaps it's the weight of the mountains, or the ancient rhythm of life still beating in each stone. But more likely, it's the awe of realizing that there are still places on this earth that resist time, places that whisper stories instead of shouting them. On the western edge of Slovenia, where the Julian Alps begin to soften into rolling highlands, there is a gorge so hidden, so painterly in its perfection, it could easily be mistaken for a place conjured in a dream. Tolman Gorge is not loud in its beauty. It doesn't roar like great rivers or tower like alpine peaks. Instead, it sings softly, with the kind of wonder that grows with every step you take along its moss-covered trails and beneath its limestone walls. The water here is the color of forgotten gemstones, milky turquoise, deep jade, transparent topaz. Each bend in the stream, another stroke in a painting still wet with color. Steam sometimes drifts from the earth, a reminder that beneath this fairy tale lies a restless, breathing world of subterranean heat. Natural springs bubble along the trail, warming the stones and scenting the air with minerals. Footbridges span the chasms with quiet grace, giving way to views that make the breath catch. High cliffs rising like cathedral walls, their faces dripping with hanging gardens of fern and ivy. The Devil's Bridge arcs above, a slender thread of man-made defiance connecting two impossible points in space. And beneath it all, the Tolminka River rushes, a ribbon of clarity that seems to glow from within. It weaves through narrow corridors of rock, slipping past caves and waterfalls like it's escaping from another age. In the quietest corners, you can hear the whisper of stone being carved by water, a slow, eternal erosion that shapes both the canyon and your own sense of scale. Tolman Gorge doesn't announce itself with grandeur. It unfolds like a secret poem, each stanza etched into the rock by time, each pause in the path an invitation to lose yourself just a little more. Tucked into the high plains of Bosnia and Herzegovina, surrounded by rolling fields and blue ridges, lies a village lost in time. Lukomir. At nearly 1,500 meters above sea level, this is the country's highest and most isolated permanent settlement. A cluster of stone houses with shingled roofs perched on the edge of a dramatic canyon that cuts like a scar through the Dinaric Alps. Sheep graze along rocky slopes. The scent of wood smoke curls through the air. The villagers still wear traditional garments, speak in dialects older than the nation itself, and live by the rhythm of the land. There is no supermarket, no streetlight, only a single winding path in and out, often closed off by snow for much of the year. And yet, Lukomir pulses with a fierce beauty. The Rakitnica Canyon unfurls below, a chasm carved by eons of wind and water. Wildflowers bloom defiantly in cracks of stone. The silence here is complete, as if the sky itself is listening. Sit on a boulder at the edge of the cliff, and you will feel it. A vastness that stretches not just across space, but across time. In Lukomir, the modern world evaporates. What remains is elemental: wind, stone, soul. On the western fringe of Tasmania, where rainforest meets sea and clouds cling to every crag, lies a place so secluded that few have ever set foot there: Corinna. Once a gold mining town, now a ghost revived by nature's reclaiming hand, Corinna stands on the banks of the Paiman River, enveloped by temperate rainforest older than time itself. In the dense green heart of Guatemala, where ancient stories cling to the trees and mist gathers like memory, lies the lost city of Yaxha. Unlike its more famous cousins, this Maya site remains quiet, undisturbed, tucked within the jungle near Lake Yaxha, a mirror of stillness reflecting the sky and canopy alike. The ruins rise unexpectedly from the forest floor. Stone pyramids, their steps worn with centuries of barefoot ascent, emerge from the earth like ancient sentinels. Ceiba trees wrap their roots around crumbling temples. Vines dangle across carved stelae, and howler monkeys call out across the canopy with voices like thunder. Climb Temple 216 at sunset, and you'll find yourself high above the treetops, staring out across a jungle that breathes. The lake glows with orange fire. The sky shifts from indigo to violet, and the silence here is profound, not empty, but filled with the hum of cicadas, the rustle of leaves, the lingering presence of those who once called this sacred. You don't visit Yaxha for spectacle. You come for presence, for stillness, for the feeling that for a brief moment, you are standing in the overlap of worlds, ancient and now, earth and sky, where the sun rises over the golden dunes of Central Asia and casts long shadows across a barren, breathless plain. The Ustyurt Plateau stretches into the horizon like a forgotten frontier between time and space. Nestled between the Caspian and Aral Seas, spanning Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan, this alien land seems untouched by both man and memory. It is a place of silence so absolute it hums. The terrain is surreal: chalky canyons, towering limestone cliffs, and sprawling salt pans that gleam like shattered mirrors in the sun. Striated hills fold in on themselves like the skin of sleeping giants, and wind-sculpted rock pillars stand as solitary guardians of a realm lost to time. In the soft light of dawn, the land turns silver. At dusk, it glows red, and in the deep night, the Milky Way unfurls overhead like an ancient scripture written across the sky. Nomadic tribes once crossed these plains, their caravans leaving faint trails in the dust. Now, the only footprints belong to wild antelopes and foxes that skitter through the brush. The air smells of dry stone and salt. The wind carries nothing but the sound of its own breath. It is not a place of comfort, but it is a place of wonder. There is no Wi-Fi, no cafes, just a primordial hush that invites you to sit with your thoughts and become smaller in the best possible way. The wind sighs softly through the dense emerald canopy above, where morning mist clings to the moss-covered trunks like nature's veil. Deep in the remote heart of Colombia lies a realm that feels almost imagined. Caño Cristales, the river of 5 colors. Hidden away in the Serranía de la Macarena National Park, this otherworldly waterway defies all expectations. From July through November, the river transforms into a surreal canvas of reds, yellows, greens, blues, and blacks. Not from minerals nor dyes, but from an aquatic plant known as Macarenia clavigera, which blooms in vivid glory beneath the crystal-clear waters. As the sunlight filters down and dances along the river's gentle ripples, the colors shimmer with each movement, shifting like a living kaleidoscope. Rocky outcroppings, sculpted by millennia of flowing water, form natural pools and channels, their surfaces carved and pocked like the terrain of another planet. The silence here is profound, interrupted only by the soft splash of water or the call of a distant bird echoing through the jungle. It's a place where you don't just witness nature, you feel its heartbeat. There are no sprawling resorts or manicured pathways here, only raw, untouched beauty, accessible only by a short flight and a journey on foot, horse, and riverboat. Each step draws you further from civilization and closer to something timeless. This isn't just a destination, it's a living miracle etched into the rainforest floor, a place that must be seen to be believed, and even then, still feels like a dream. On the windswept plains of Mongolia, where the sky stretches in every direction and the land rolls like waves frozen in stone, there lies a cavern few have ever seen. Ikhnartin Chulu, more commonly called Ikhnart, is a granite outcrop in the middle of the Gobi Steppe. It is a place where the horizon bleeds into sky and silence becomes a tangible force. But hidden within its folds are labyrinthine rock formations and canyons so narrow and deep they vanish into shadow even under the midday sun. Here, wild Argali sheep leap across boulders like ancient spirits, and bearded vultures spiral overhead in solemn circles. The air smells of lichen and dust, and the rocks themselves seem to hum with age. Petroglyphs, etched by Bronze Age hands, dot the granite walls, their meanings lost, but their presence undeniable. At dusk, golden light catches on the stone, setting it ablaze in hues of fire and copper, while the wind carries the scent of distant rain. There are no roads here, no signs, just the guidance of nomadic herders, their yurts barely visible in the vastness. They speak of hidden springs and sacred stones, of places where the earth listens. Ikhnart is one of them. To walk here is to step back into the raw breath of the world, where history and myth blend into something deeper than either. It is solitude redefined, vastness embodied. In the far east of Iceland, where paved roads surrender to gravel and the world narrows into silence, a place of surreal stillness opens before you. The Studlagil Canyon is carved not just into the earth, but into the memory of anyone who stands before it. Its basalt columns rise in perfect symmetry, row upon row of hexagonal stone that look too ordered to be natural. They flank a river of blue-green meltwater so vibrant it seems dyed by the sky. Once hidden beneath a raging glacial torrent, the canyon was only revealed in recent years, as hydroelectric changes shifted the river's path and bared this cathedral of stone to the sun. The approach is unassuming. Grassy hills, scattered sheep, and wind tugging at your coat. Then, suddenly, the land parts, and you're staring into another realm. The basalt walls are colossal, shaped by ancient volcanic fire, and cooled in such perfect timing that they formed like honeycomb, a structure so rhythmic it feels like music made physical. The water, calm and slow, runs like liquid jade between the columns, catching the light and flinging it back in shimmering shards. To walk along the edge is to teeter on the border between chaos and order. Birds nest in the crevices, their calls sharp and wild in the canyon's echoing stillness. A descent path leads to the base, where you can stand dwarfed by stone and feel the weight of geological time pressing around you. There is no infrastructure, no guards or gift shops, just raw, untouched nature unfolding its newest miracle. You do not talk much here. You trace the lines with your eyes, breathe in the chilled, mineral air, and let your heart try and make sense of a beauty that feels like it was never meant to be seen. On the southern coast of Italy, where the sun burns gold into the cliffs and the Tyrrhenian Sea rolls like liquid sapphire, hides a place even many Italians have never seen, Civita di Bagnoregio. Perched atop a crumbling volcanic mesa and connected to the world by a single narrow pedestrian bridge, this ancient village floats like a dream above the fog. Known as La Città che muore, the dying city, Civita is slowly succumbing to time, its cliffs eroding, its walls weathering like parchment. But what remains is nothing short of transcendent. Stone archways open into cobbled alleys lined with blooming geraniums. Sunlight plays on ochre walls, and every turn reveals vistas that stretch into rolling vineyards, olive groves, and the deep folds of the Lazio countryside. There are no cars here, no neon signs, only footsteps echoing off stone and the clink of cutlery from hidden courtyards. At dusk, the town glows in amber tones, the sky melting into lavender as church bells ring like echoes from centuries past. Civita doesn't try to impress. It whispers, seduces, and disappears into the mist. It is a place between worlds, where the present is thin and history pulses just beneath the surface. Visiting Civita is like walking into a forgotten poem, one that lingers long after the last line has faded.